Okay, you have to give me. Give me a moment. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'm going to ask Supervisor Gene Bishop to lead us in the invocation and Supervisor Gary Watson to lead us in the pledge.
Please join me in the invocation by standing. Lord, we are meeting here today to conduct county matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities to our affairs so that we may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen.
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 Supervisor Watson.
You follow me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to call for an executive session to be held June 15, 2015 at 9:30 a.m. or at the conclusion of the regular meeting, whichever is later, for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with Arizona Revised Statutes 38-431.03, subsection A, subsections 3 and 4, to discuss items noticed on the agenda with an asterisk.
So moved. I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Going on to item 1, discussion of pending or contemplating litigation claims and demands. Attorney Ekstrom, is there any reason that we should go into executive session now?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Attorney Ekstrom. Going on to committee and/or legislative reports. I will start with my left, commencing with Supervisor Johnson. Is there any report that you'd care to share with us, Supervisor Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a webinar was put on to explain the county's new WIOA program, and that stands for Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and it will be replacing the Workforce Investment Act. The entire guidance and rule-making process for the new program is not finalized. However, they expect, or at least hope, counties have the program somewhat in place by July 1st of this year. As of right now, they are in the rulemaking and planning phase. While counties are required to somewhat implement the program in July, the final rules for the program will not be completed until January 16. The new program will focus more on economic development and regions than on a statewide basis. While there were regions with the WIA program, the regions under WIOA may be different. It is up to the counties to partner with outside partners and to determine what regions they will be in. They plan to have the state unified plan by March of 2016, so every region is under the same guidelines. Counties now, for example, like Yavapai, have already went ahead and implemented a one-stop RFP for July of this year, because under the new program, each region has to get local designation by the governor. Yavapai drafted its RFP based on a former RFP template that they had used in their current procurement process for this year. They warned in the webinar that regions need to ensure they are implementing a full competitive procurement process, or their RFPs will not qualify under the new rules, and they would have to start over. Some of the major changes from this new program include a local and regional system with expanded systems and services, along with a focus on outside partnership. They plan to redesign their one-stop focus to focus not just on job training, but other opportunities for individuals like education, workshops, etc. This makeup of the local board is also changing. Instead of having numerous categories and boards and numerous board members to fill them, it will be made up of 4 categories: business, workforce, representatives, education, and around 18 municipal members total. The members of the local board will be selected by the chief local elected officials and will have more expanded role in the way that WIOA is structured and ran. 51% of the board will be made up of business representatives, and at least 20% will be made up of the other 3 categories. These can include 2 or more individuals from a labor organization. Members can also come from higher education or training institutions, and there can also be 1 or more members who come from local government or economic development on the board. Local WIA boards will be required to work with elected officials, do workforce research, and also engage in business partnerships and efforts within the community. Local boards will be required to be certified by the state and will require recertification every 2 years. Joint regional planning with other local boards will need to occur on a 4-year basis. They made it a point throughout the webinar to state that the WIOA is going to be very different than the current Workforce Investment Act, and that the new year will be confusing until all final rules and regulations are in place. Also, I did a webinar on Desert Landscape Conservation Cooperative, LCC. Coordinator Genevieve Johnson was the speaker. She spoke about the Desert Landscape Conservation Cooperative and what they do. They started by saying the resource managers have faced many challenges in the past regarding climate change and resource management. The LCC was formed to work through these challenges. The LCC works public and private partners to overcome challenges. They help leverage lost opportunities and find funding for the projects. It was formed after the 2009 Secretarial Order 3289 was written. The order addresses the impacts of climate change on America's water, land, and other natural and cultural resources. The LCC's role is to link science and conservation delivery. They integrate priority needs and goals across species groups and large landscapes. They help to identify the most effective conservation approaches to achieve common goals, and they can also help identify gaps in science when it comes to climate change. She said the LCC works across jurisdictional boundaries on a large geographic scale. They act as a non-regulatory partner. She went over the LCC timeline and what they have done since forming in 2009. In 2010, they did a public outreach. In 2011, they began forming partnerships and received their first funding cycle. In 2012, began to narrow their focus on specific science identification and engage at the network level. Between 13 and 14, they were able to identify and focus their resources to target specific needs and begin conservation planning that focused on science. This year, the LCC's goals are to establish conservation goals and objectives, support specific needs and capabilities, focus on landscape conservation, planning, design, and bring it all together to focus on the scientific aspect of it. LCC is made up of many parts, including steering committees, working groups that contain local government involvement, and then they also use staff members for groups. Some examples of what their focus is on are evaluating and implementing environmental flows, monitoring species and how they react to climate change. They find the appropriate management and restoration techniques for desert grasslands and scrublands. They test the psychological stress on species from climate change. They see what amphibians and reptiles are sensitive to climate change. They mentioned that they were giving $11 million in funding from 2011 to 2014 for these projects. One example they gave of the project was the monitoring water delivery data and modeling integration for the Colorado River Delta for this project. The Bureau of Reclamation funded $100,000 and private partners funded $159,600. They ended by offering additional webinars to receive their updates and to check on current information. They also said that in this WRP they've spent $11 million. My concern has always been that with climate change agenda, they'll start providing direct input and guidance to the agencies and ultimately to our local governments. I'm glad that we had this, but there are a lot of agency folks who don't even know what is going on. $11 million for 3 years is quite a chunk of change and doesn't include what other agencies had to spend for their staffs to cooperate. And there's 22 of them so nationally, so if you multiply that out, that's just more than walking around money, even at the federal level. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Johnson. Supervisor Watson, do you have anything to share with us?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chairman. I attended the Western Interstate Region Conference in Kauai, Hawaii on May 20th to the 22nd. That, of course, is the region for the NACO, National Association of Counties organization. The main emphasis of the meeting was public lands and public lands planning. There were a number of sessions that we were in, and I'll outline a few of those as we went through those. We covered the Western States drought update. I was a partial presenter in that, indicating the first 6 hours, how important they are in any fire disaster, covering the responsibility of the chairman, the importance of emergency management teamwork, total and complete communication, and the plan for the planning for the event. Not if, but when. Public Land Steering Committee also looked at cultivating a recreation economy, natural resources, and it was interesting to look at the dollars invested by our government and the dollars returned versus local dollars invested and the return on investment, sometimes as much as 10 times the difference. And I'll outline that with a written report later. Then on Thursday, session was preparing for disaster, the 2015 fire season, and why defensible space may not be enough. In the afternoon, we had a fun session with the Dale Carnegie Institute, building trust, credibility, and rapport. Several of us from Arizona had a great time in dealing with the presenter. He was from New York City, and we had a great time in the dialogue with him. The Public Lands Roundtable was that afternoon, and we were reviewing lasting solutions for PILT, the federal payment in lieu of taxes. On Friday, we covered the telling the county story with the maps, the Explorer Interactive session, and I presented brought maps from that presentation in which Mohave County was included. It outlines information from Mohave County, all counties throughout the United States, just at the touch of your fingers. It gives you a pretty good snapshot of each county throughout our nation. The other items that we covered that morning were combating invasive species, which were insects and disease in our lands in each county. One of the more interesting presentations that morning was that of cybersecurity, the depths of which we need to be looking at on the county issues, which defense is the best, and kind of a new subject for me was the possibility of ensuring those defenses. And I had a small discussion with Supervisor Johnson, and he kind of brought me up to speed on what we do with ensuring our cybersecurity. The closing session, a wrap-up, was Friday afternoon with the installations of officers for the coming year. Next year's session will be at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, May 25th through the 27th.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Watson. Supervisor Bishop.
I have no report, thank you.
Supervisor Angus.
Nothing this morning, Chairman.
And I also have nothing this morning. Going on to item 3, County Administrator's Report. County Administrator Hendricks, do you have anything to report to the board and to the public?
I have no report today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, County Administrator Hendricks. Going on to item 4, approval of the May 4th, 2015 Board of Supervisor meeting minutes. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Before you go any further, can I go back to reports?
Absolutely. We're going to reopen item 2, reports, at the request of Supervisor Watson.
At the end of the session with WIR was introduced to a gentleman by the name of Jim Chimlick. He is the lead person in putting together at least 100 counties throughout the United States for a litigation strategy against the Forest Service and BLM, covering the damages incurred that are economic, cultural, and the reduced access to forest, reduced access to public lands, and especially the public safety risk of catastrophic fire. I'd like to invite Mr. Chimlick to our next meeting as he can outline further the litigation strategy on that, and if Mohave County would like to join.
That sounds like a wonderful idea, Supervisor Watson.
Thank you.
Going back to call to the public, we have people signed up to speak for items 10, 11, and 16. Since those are consent agenda items, they will be heard during the call to the public. I will start with Thomas Swider on agenda item number 10. Mr. Swider. Mr. Swider, if you can approach the podium, state your name and your residence, and you have 3 minutes to make comments to the board.
My name is Thomas Swider, and I live in Golden Valley, but I'm here just for the approval on this item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swider. So you are seeking that we approve item 10? Thank you. Item 11 is Marcia Schmidike. I hope I said that correctly, Ms. Schmidike, and if I did, correct me. I'm not shy about being corrected. Please approach the podium, state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to make comments to the board.
Marcia Smidicky, I live in Golden Valley, and I just had some questions concerning the animal sanctuary. Is there going to be enough water to be able to support the 1,000-plus animals, swimming pools, his water features, and how will the sewage and animal waste be taken care of? And has there been any environmental impact study done on this to see how it would affect the natural animals in the area? And concerns about dust during the areas of construction? And will he be using materials and labor from our area?
I'm sorry, ma'am, the board cannot engage in public conversation on items of this nature. I will, however, instruct the county administration if someone with them can engage with this lady after the meeting and fill her in on those issues to the extent that we have that information. Okay. And we have your contact information, so they will be contacting you.
Okay, so nothing today.
Sometime today, yes. Thank you very much. Item 16, Cleary Dallin. Who wishes to speak on item 16? If you can state your name and your address, ma'am.
Good morning, I'm Cherie DeLynn, and my address is 8115 West Oatman Highway, which is also the location of For the Love of Paws Domestic Animal Rescue and Sanctuary. I have been recommended for approval for another 3-year extension on my zoning use permit, but since the majority of the board I don't think has been out there, I was wondering if I could just show you a few pictures of what we have done out there.
You have up to 3 minutes, ma'am, to do whatever you want on this item or any other item.
This was during our open house in March, and this is the front part of the property where the home and the driveways and things like that are. This is a 20 by 30 steel garage, which is where our catteries are. We have 3 of them inside there. They are 8 by 10 by 16. The cats, all of our animals are free range in there, and we provide them with a home-like environment as close as we can get. This is a picture of the rescue from up above on Open Highway on the mountain going towards Ed's Camp. Shows our kennels on the left. This is our kennel area. There are 20 on the right, 6 on the left. They have an open area where the dogs are let out to play 3 times a day. Our kennels are 6 by 12. We have 3 to 4 inches of sand on the ground. The back half, the 3 feet, is corrugated tin to protect them from the rain. The front half is shade cloth to protect them from the elements, the sun. And we just got a grant from Petco last year to replace all of our kennels. So they are now concrete walls, and we use the chain link in the center. We just left it there to provide the mesh. And so now we have a misting system installed and a heating system. The houses are up on tires, and we've run pipes under them with hot water to run under them during the winter time to keep them warm. So anyway, I just wanted you to see what it is that you're voting for, and that we are doing our best to keep For the Love of Paws a premier animal rescue Mohave County can be proud of.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That was much appreciated. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to the call to the public? Seeing none, the call to the public is now closed.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a presentation. We are fortunate to have with us today Kevin McCarthy, who's president, and Jennifer Stillo, who is vice president of the Arizona Tax Research Association. They've been very gracious and are going to give us an outline of the tax and budgeting issues from ATRA's perspective, and as that may impact Mohave County. Then turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Again, my name is Kevin McCarthy. I'm president of the Arizona Tax Research Association. Appreciate the invite to be here this morning. And as the chairman noted, I'm joined by our vice president, Jennifer Stillo, who is our county government analyst, and I trust you have seen her annual reports on the 15 county budgets that we make available to you, and have brought hard copies with us today. What I'd like to do in the few minutes
is to talk generally about our organization, particularly for maybe some of the new board members that might not be familiar with who we are. And then Jennifer is going to talk specifically about some of the major issues that we think are going on in county government finance, and we'd certainly be willing to take any and all questions you have. For those of you that aren't aware of our organization, we're a 75-year-old taxpayer organization headquartered in Phoenix. If you go to meetings at the County Supervisors Association and walk to the Capitol, you walk right by our building on the way through the Governor's Tower. I am in my 29th year working for the Arizona Tax Research Association. Jennifer's in her 15th year. We also have another staffer who is our local government kind of school district expert that does work in that area. We're governed by a board of directors of 50. It's available on the website if you'd like to see who our board of directors are. We're privately funded, take no government financing or funding in any respect. Our board reads like a who's who of Arizona corporations, but it doesn't stop at that. Our bylaws direct us to try to reflect the tax-paying community of Arizona. So you will find on our board both individual taxpayers, representative of the ranching community, the cattle industry, the commercial industrial office property industry. We go to great lengths to try to make sure that we have taxpayers from every segment of the taxpaying community. I might add, one of the reasons why you don't see Arizona Tax Research Association at the Capitol looking for tax breaks, targeted tax breaks for one particular company is just that. Our company believes taxes ought to be equitably applied. Everybody ought to have a skin in the game and pay taxes, and that it's horrible policy to point at one taxpayer and say, you get to go, you don't have to pay any taxes. Many of our efforts result in entities encouraging us to go spend our time monitoring others, but it's important that you know, in addition to county governments, we're involved with all local government finance, monitoring county governments, city governments, school districts. We're not able to be to every city in the state, but we do budget reviews with every county, every community college district. Do a lot of work with Arizona fire districts. We bore you for an hour about problems in that area right now. But we're heavily involved in all local governments that we have the time to get to. Historically, we've been very involved in local governments that dominantly were budgeting and levying property taxes to balance their budgets. County governments, community colleges. When I started at ATRA almost 30 years ago, that was sort of the rationale why we spent a lot more time with counties and community colleges and not schools. What we are not is an anti-tax organization. My board of directors understands very keenly the need for a healthy state and local government operation in Arizona. Most of the work, the best work that we do, you don't know about because we don't write about it. When we have budget meetings, it is usually our goal to try to have meetings privately with staff. It isn't to hide from the media, but these meetings can get lengthy. But they also provide an opportunity for us to relay concerns about areas that have not made it into the final budget, that we think once there are concerns have been vetted, that problems can be taken care of. Most of the time they are. There are scores of examples I can give you where we think that we were able to alert both management and elected officials of things that might end up in court if they proceeded and people elected not to do that. We prefer to do business that way. You very rarely see us out pounding on local governments about tax increases unless they are what we would feel are excessive. We were in Pinal County last week fighting against a 80-cent tax increase from the community college that we thought went well beyond anything that was fair at this point in time. So that would be an example where we publicly had to oppose a tax increase. We also, as you know, just to sort of wrap up, we also are very involved in the legislature. During the legislative session, we have our own legislative program, but we're very active in every year, and probably at least 100 bills that we think are affecting taxpayers in one way or the other. A lot of that work is merely educating lawmakers about the effect of legislation. We have expertise on in school finance in our office that probably is better than anywhere else at the Capitol, and we're relied on a lot to explain to lawmakers what the effects are of changes in a very complicated K-12 school finance structure. We do a lot with the counties. Regrettably, I think a lot of what you hear about us, if you hear things about us through representatives, is largely negative. You probably don't get the feedback when things have worked out and we worked out agreements on bills, or maybe where we've even been helpful. I helped write the county jail district statute with then Nita Bowman, who was the county manager in La Paz County, God rest her soul. We helped write the capital projects tax that some of the counties have relied on to be able to do debt financing and back that debt financing with sales taxes, where the only option you had was to go to GO bonds. So we prefer to have a very open and transparent dialogue with local governments, work out problems before they become problems in order to stay out of court, and think that most of the time we're able to accomplish that. What I'd like to do now, and I think Jennifer's brought some extra copies. For those of you who don't have your hard copy, and she's not going to, don't fear, she's not going to walk through it, but she's going to give you some of the more current issues that we've worked on relating to county government finance, and maybe some of the things that we're looking at this year. And I will be available for questions too. I won't run off. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCarthy. Ms. Stillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Supervisors. I have extra publications here. Can I hand this out?
Absolutely.
While she's handing that out, I know that you've probably all received a copy of this. As Kevin stated, I've been with ATRA for 15 years, and I have met with the counties every year and during the budgeting process to talk about issues that they're dealing with, how their revenues are coming in, if they're having problems in any areas. What you see there is that annual publication that we send out. I think it's very helpful for the county government as well as taxpayers to see what kind of issues are being dealt with and how they're being addressed. And just to give you an idea, if you haven't seen it, it just gives a basic overview of the revenues and expenditures, if the county's giving pay raises and so forth. The publication is actually very accurate, and the reason for that is there's a lot of communication going back and forth with the counties. At the beginning, sure, I meet with the counties, we talk about different issues, but as time goes on, and prior to the final publication of this report, information is back and forth with the counties, and they have an opportunity to correct any information that I have in that report, if anything's inaccurate whatsoever. And it does state that as well, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about that report moving on. What I noticed over the years, meeting with the counties, there were several areas within the county budget report that we saw were shortcomings. One of the questions that we ask the counties every year is, well, early on, what do you budget for your personnel costs? How much for salaries? How much for health benefits, retirement costs, and so forth? More often than not, they couldn't answer that question off the bat, so that was problematic. The other thing is, we ask about pay raises. Are you giving employees pay raises this year? Yes, we are, 2.5% COLA, for instance. What is the impact to the budget? Again, oftentimes that was not able to be answered. So the legislation that we advocated for over the years was to require that local government budgets include such information. So that's why you have now broken out in your budgets personnel costs and the employee-related expenses to go with that. Another piece of legislation we had just passed this last year. Again, meeting with the counties every year, we look at a bunch of different publications. One is the financial statements, and we try to see if the counties are current in filing their financial statements. Right now, well, prior to this legislation this last year, county governments, cities, and community colleges would be required to file their financial statements with the Auditor General's office within 4 months after the end of the fiscal year. If extenuating circumstances arose, they could get a 4-month extension if requested by the Auditor General. What we noticed more often, again, was that these deadlines were not being met by local governments. In some cases, several counties fell several years behind, 4 to 5 years. What happens in that situation is when there's an issue in the county, maybe they're not reconciling funds and so forth, that issue is not discovered until years down the road. Obviously, that issue becomes compounded. So what we did this year, advocated for legislation, and it passed, that extended that deadline from 4 months to 9 months. And if a local jurisdiction does not complete their financial audit by the time that they adopt the subsequent year's budget, a form as prescribed by the Auditor General's office is to be included in their budget stating the financial statements are pending, the reason for the delay, and the estimated completion date. So we think that at least these two pieces of legislation that we advocated for were very positive on both sides, both for local government and taxpayers. And not to go on much further, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does any member of the board have a question for Ms. Stillo or Mr. McCarthy? I will start to my right with Supervisor Angus.
No, thank you very much for traveling here.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bishop.
I don't have any questions, but I thank you for coming as well, and I understand we're now members of ATRA, is that correct? Or we're going to become members?
The local government has always been a complimentary membership, so we've always sent you our newsletters and any publication that we have, so you should be receiving any information that we distribute to our mass mailing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Supervisor Watson.
Just want to say, welcome to Mohave County, Kevin.
Thank you.
It's been a number of years since we interacted together. I enjoyed Kevin's analysis of Mohave Community College back a number of years ago, and also when I was chairman of the State Community College Board. It's been a few years ago, but welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Supervisor Johnson.
No questions, thank you.
I also want to thank you for attending. I do have just a couple questions, and that's just for my edification. When it comes to ATRA, you said the local governments have a complimentary membership. What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we actually charge local governments in the nonprofit status for membership, with the exception of county government. The reason for that is that historically there's been a lot of coordination between ATRA and counties, particularly as it relates to getting property tax information. As your staff will probably tell you, when the moment you adopt rates and levies the third Monday in August, our staff is bugging you for that data. And all the counties are very cooperative in getting us that info. You've probably seen our property tax rate book. Right. If you have insomnia, it's a cure for it. And we need that information rapidly. There's other examples of that. And so in return, we offer our membership to counties, as Jennifer said, without cost. Cities, colleges, the rest pay. It's a modest amount. It's $100 a year.
Okay. And when it comes to the complimentary membership, what exactly does that give to the county? I heard a reference to a newsletter or some emails.
Mr. Chairman, yes. A member of our organization, obviously not somebody on our board of directors, has access to any and all communications that the organization, newsletters, publications that go out, they receive that information.
Excellent. I know you've been reviewing our budget for a number of years. Is there any recommendations? We're starting our workshop this afternoon, or as soon as our regular meeting is over. Is there any recommendations you might make or give to us when it comes to that review? Things we should look for, things we might want to improve upon?
Mr. Chairman, we were discussing that on the way up. I have not had an opportunity yet to review this year's budget, and so I would be very reluctant to give you any recommendations. I know that this year, as seems to have been the case since the recession, that all the counties are first reacting through cost shifts, right? doing long-term planning at the county level is an exercise in frustration, right? When you think you've planned, the state changes the terms of the agreement. So I know that's a major challenge. As a part of, I might add, as some of you have been around a while know that we've long been concerned about the growth of special districts that some occurred really outside the scope of what we thought was contemplated when all of the reforms were passed in '90 with levy limitations, expenditure limitations, and the county library district, for instance, that was a statutory creation. It wasn't voter approved. And then they became siphons, if you will, for money to go from a secondary taxing jurisdiction into the general fund. And that has ebbed and flowed over the years and was a bigger problem at different times. That now has, as you know, has become sort of a major source of revenue to help balance budgets. That got started at during the recession, at the depth of the recession, and actually something that we agreed to with lawmakers, leadership. They expressed concern that we were going to raise too much of a stink about that. The difficulty associated with trying to get through those budgets, where we lost 40% of the state's general fund revenue, was significant. So there was pain all over the place. I am concerned, I'll just wrap it, I am concerned about the extent to which that now seems to be taking on kind of a permanent feature of county government finance. I hope that can be resolved. Just from the standpoint of transparency, I would doubt you would want to be explaining to a taxpayer why it is money is leaving a special district and making its way to the general fund unless it was directly for a charge for service of some kind. And so I would hope that down the road that we can get that resolved. I don't, certainly it's not going to happen this summer as counties wrap up their FY16 budgets.
Thank you very much for those comments. I do appreciate both your attendance, and I really hope that you'll engage with us more when you have words of wisdom, advice, suggestions, because we are 5 members of the Board of Supervisors. We need input from everyone, including our constituents, including those who are not our constituents, such as groups as ATRA, and we'll take all the information we can give or get.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Supervisor Johnson.
Now that you got Mr. McCarthy fired up.
Are you saying I woke you up?
With the state budget, I've long said that they're not structurally balanced. With the possibility of the college money having to come back with the lawsuit, where do you see the state going? I mean, I don't believe they're in a good financial position. I mean, they kind of balance with tricks and gimmicks every year, and they keep looking to us. At some point, they can't. There's no possible way they can continue to push down on the cities and counties. Do you have just a thought on that?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, yeah, I couldn't agree more. The budget is technically balanced, right? There was $1 billion roughly in new revenue to be spent for the FY16 exercise. 750 of it was spent in one form or another to balance the FY16 budget. So that means there's $1 billion over the next 3 years. One of the good things legislature did was 3 years ago they passed a law that says we have to pass a 3-year budget. Now there's not the detail out in the second and third year that you might want, but at least they go through the exercise of trying to see what the budget looks like. So they did 16, 17, and 18. And over those 3 years, there was $1 billion to be spent. We already spent 750 of it for the 16 budget. So that tells you what you have to look forward to. We've got 250 left. Now that depends. We don't know what the economy is going to do, and maybe revenues will increase. But they're major challenges. And I think we're to a point that I think one of the major economic development problems that the state faces is the lack of stability at the state level. It doesn't do anybody any good, neither state government or local governments or taxpayers, if the amount of volatility and instability at the state level is what we're seeing now. So something needs to be done to try to get state government on a stable path. You think you have concerns about what they do to you. Imagine running a state agency. And if your funds aren't earmarked, the K-12s ran out and got themselves carved out, and they've got dedicated funding sources, and now the court has ruled that they're required to get both population and inflation funding. Everybody else, if you're running the Department of Revenue or a state agency, you're not protected. They have been almost cannibalized since the depth of the recession. So there are major challenges. And with the 2/3 vote to raise taxes, another thing that might surprise you, we opposed when that was advocated back in '90. There's little hope that they'll do anything on the revenue side. If something happens on the revenue side, it'll have to go to the ballot.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman Moss?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Man,
Can
it
we
looks like
just
I started
go
an
back to the-
avalanche. This is
I know,
great.
yeah, got me going, and I did, I've been thumbing through this, and, I don't know why I didn't get it, but thank you for it. And, you were talking about some of these special districts, and we're having a discussion in our county about our television district, and thank you. I mean, I think I've preliminary looked through this, and I think we've confirmed what I've been saying is that we're the only county that has a TV district.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Angus, that's correct.
Right. And according to what it says here, the amount budgeted for the district is nearly 8 times more than the actual amount necessary to fund the district. How is that? It doesn't sound normal, but I mean, in relation to other special districts, is that something that's disturbing, or is that normal, or how do you view that?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Angus, we've I will just, for the record, not been fans of the TV district for probably the beginning of my career, so I just want to make that clear. That would be very unique for any entity, whether it's a county, city, college, or a special district, to have that much money in reserves in comparison. But I think it's probably reflective of the size of the tax base of Mohave County, right? Raising money for something as narrow as a TV district that maybe has long since lost its original purpose, is it's generating more money than it needed.
Right. Well, thank you very much for that clarification.
Any other questions from a member of the board? Okay. Well, again, I'd like to reiterate, thank you for coming. It's wonderful to see you in Mohave County, and I hope we meet again soon.
Very good. Thank you.
Going on to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull an item.
Oh, I'm way ahead of myself. Items to be pulled. I'll start with Supervisor Angus. Is there any items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda?
Not for me, Chairman Moss.
Supervisor Bishop.
I'd like to pull item number 11.
Item number 11. Supervisor Watson.
None.
Supervisor Johnson.
40, 43.
40 and 43. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items 11, 40, and 43?
So made.
Second.
motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Good. Going on to item 11, adoption of Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2015-088, rezone of assessor's parcel number 351.01-005 and a portion of assessor's parcel number 351-01-020 from an AR 36A, agricultural residential 36-acre minimum lot size, zone to a C-RE/36A, commercial recreation 36-acre minimum lot size zone to allow for an animal park and sanctuary in the Golden Valley vicinity north of U.S. Highway 68, south of Fietz Avenue, approximately 10 miles west of U.S. Highway 93 and Chloride Road, Mohave County, Arizona. The commission recommended approval by unanimous vote. Yes, I now turn it over to you since I've now spent all that time reading it, Supervisor Bishop.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. I pulled this item only because there is someone here that has questions, and I noticed that Jonathan Kraft is here from Keepers of the Wild and his wife, and so I thought I'd give him an opportunity to explain some of the questions that she had. And I know this is very, very preliminary, and this item is just to approve the rezoning, and Jonathan, if you want to take the floor and explain and answer some of this citizens' questions, I'd appreciate it.
Certainly. Good morning,
Floor is
Supervisors. Some of the items that were addressed by this lady just a little while ago, most of those had been addressed by, or rather had been brought up by Arizona Game and Fish as well as Bureau of Land Management. We have addressed those items. Certainly, we are very concerned about the being in the middle of the big wild sheep or the bighorn sheep preserve area. And all of our entire sanctuary and all of our animal habitats are protected by an 8-foot perimeter fence, a very minimum of 10 feet away from any animals, so there cannot be any kind of contact with the indigenous animals. I also believe that some of the concerns were water. We do own on the property a 350-gallon-a-minute well. We obviously are going to, with our sewage treatment facility, which is quite extensive if you look at our business plan, that our gray water will be recycled for vegetation and irrigation purposes. I believe there was also an erosion question by the grazing of our animals. All of our animals do not depend on food from their own habitats. They are being fed by food that we bring in, obviously. Reseeding and watering of such properties will be ongoing. We're, very much so into conserving water, into conserving the environment. We are trying to run this entire facility on solar power and make this a real educational facility. I don't know if some of the other things that the young lady was talking about, and the environmental reviews have been addressed and also have been submitted to Arizona Game and Fish as well as the Bureau of Land Management. But if there's any other questions that people may have or concerns, we're certainly willing to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. I know I kind of view this as economic development for the area of Dolan Springs and the surrounding community. They're hungry for jobs out there, and I know this sanctuary will provide a number of jobs,
Right.
not only during the construction, but after the construction. And I think one of the questions was, will you be hiring local talents to work with
Yes.
your...
Well, anybody that knows our track record, I mean, we've been doing extensive building in at Keepers of the Wild. We're currently building a $500,000 gift shop. We've spent well over $1 million last year in improving habitats. All of that is done by local construction and construction companies, and we're very proud of that. We're trying to keep it in the area. And that will be the same for our wild animal planet. We'll be using probably all, if possible, local talent. And of course, it will create anywhere from 150 to 200 jobs for the community.
Okay, and then as far as water goes, do you have any plans to have any aquatic animals?
No. We're staying away from that, and we're trying to obviously stay away. We want to, live in unison with the desert. Water features are not necessary. There will be some water features, but all of that will be recycled. We intend to build catch basins and so on and so forth. Of course, the engineering and the hydrology and all of that on the property has not been completed yet, and we will submit that for approval once that is.
All right, and then my last question is, and we talked about this, the concerns for the traffic that'll be coming in and out as it relates to dirt roads, and you told me that if it becomes a problem that you would be up to doing an improvement district or whatever it takes to pave those roads. Is that
Absolutely,
correct?
yeah. We intend to improve the roads. That's part of our budget, and we'd be happy to work with the county and ADOT and so on with that situation. I do believe that when it comes to the traffic, that I think if the miles per hour or the speed limit is reduced, as well as strategic signs placed on the road to watch out for wildlife or potentially cattle that is grazing in the area, as well as tortoises and so on and so forth, then I think that would be something that would be feasible. There's only one way out, one way in, one way out. We're not going to let people roam all over the property. Matter of fact is you can't even walk on the property or drive on the property. Other than get to your parking lot, you will be picked up by solar train, and then you will be delivered to a variety of educational centers that then will allow you to walk on walkways that are secured over and in between habitats. But other than that, the public at large is not allowed to wander on the property whatsoever.
Okay, well, I just want to thank you and your partners and your investors for taking a chance on Mohave County and bringing this to our area. And I've said it before, I'm very excited about it, and I look forward to seeing you progress through the stages as it develops.
Well, thank you, supervisors, and we're proud of being here. Keepers of the Wild, as you well know, has been a big success in the county, and we love the county. We're all for it, and we hope to make the adventure a little bit bigger and be able to supply a lot of jobs and create some revenue for the county.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Johnson.
Sir, you were talking about your water well. How many acre-feet a year do you plan on using?
I'm sorry?
How many acre-feet of water a year do you plan on using?
We haven't determined that yet because we haven't done the engineering on that yet, but I can guarantee it will be considerably less than a golf course or housing development.
Okay, that's the only question I had of him, but of Mr. Letowski, if he could come forward, please. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Letowski.
I have the right department head, right? You're P&Z now?
Engineering, he'll be making
Engineering.
recommendations.
Oh, what about, there's a couple of letters that we received from Fish and Game and people with questions regarding the tortoises and the endangered species. Were those addressed at P&Z Commission?
Chairman Moss, Supervisor Johnson, I cannot comment specifically with regard to the P&Z Commission's review of any particular documents from those agencies. Perhaps Nick Hunt, our Development Services Director, may be
Okay, I always picked the wrong one. Oh,
having
okay, then.
attended those meetings.
Would you be, or would Mr. Hunt be the one, it was brought up about the roads, and we've just gone through, like our last meeting where somebody was allowed to put something in, and why aren't roads being addressed at the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Chairman Moss, Supervisor Johnson, I can take that question. With regard to developments, when a site plan process is initiated, and that comes after the rezone process, when site plans are initiated, the Public Works Department does become actively involved in reviewing all engineering-related aspects of a particular development. And Mohave County does maintain traffic impact analysis standards, which we will size up to see whether or not minimum demand thresholds, meaning traffic generation thresholds, are met that would trigger the need for a traffic impact assessment or perhaps a greater study for Public Works to be able to analyze whether certain off-site road improvements are necessary, both the development of the roadway as well as possible paving.
Okay, so just so the people that might be curious about, they'll know, there will be, this isn't the final approved plans or anything, there could be required a paving of roads by the applicant at some future time.
Chairman Moss, Supervisor Johnson, the Public Works will look at those requirements extensively during the site plan process subsequent to this action.
All right, maybe Mr. Hunt can answer my other one? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Letowski. The question was, we had a few letters, I don't know if they were given to the Planning and Zoning Commission, questions about the endangered species with regards to the bighorn sheep and the tortoises. And did the Planning and Zoning Commission consider those letters, or did they come after the comment period?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, I don't recall the Planning Zoning Commission receiving those letters prior to the meeting. My understanding that was for a rezone at this time, and any of those items could be addressed during the site plan approval process.
Okay, that was all I needed to know, just so they would know that we will take into consideration their concerns, because that could come back onto Mohave County, especially with tortoise fencing and those other issues that'll come up. There'll be hidden costs that the developer might not realize coming in, so could affect
Yes.
his property.
Yeah,
and its
obviously, the
venture.
developer will have to comply with all those federal road requirements.
All right, well, thank you. That's all the questions I had. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Thank
Is
you.
there any other questions? Supervisor Watson?
No question. Just like to say thank you very much, Mr. Kraft. Really proud to have Keepers of the Wild in District 1, my district, and look forward to seeing you in District 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Supervisors.
Is there any other questions from a member of the board? I'd like to reiterate, sir, that my children love your organization, so I hope you are successful in your expansion. Thank you. May I have a motion on item 11?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Going on to item 40. Sitting as the Board of Directors of the Mohave County Library District, approve Mohave County Libraries to be closed on the actual holiday when that holiday falls on a Saturday and open on the observed Friday. Supervisor Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, almost for discussion.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I brought this forward. I would rather we observe the holidays than the make-believe ones that Congress gives us for three-day weekends. But I think, my opinion is, if we change one department, the public is never going to figure out when we're open and closed anymore. That's just mine.
All right. Is there any other commentary on item 40 of the agenda? Is Catherine Pinnell in the audience? Ms. Pinnell, if you'd like to comment on item 40?
Thank you. Supervisor Moss, Supervisor Johnson. The intent here was that the libraries be closed on the actual holiday rather than the observed Friday. In the case coming up for the Independence Day, the Independence Day is actually on the Saturday. So what this would mean if we follow the current progression that's listed in the merit rules and the proposed personnel procedures and policies is that the library would be closed on Friday, July 3rd, open on Saturday, July 4th. Yes, staff would like to be off on the actual holiday, but I do think it's confusing for the public when they come to the library on Friday, July 3rd, and it's closed. And then on Saturday, July 4th, staff is there and people do not expect the library to be open. So, this holiday is the 4th of July. Next year, were it not a leap year, we'd be dealing with the same issue for Christmas Day and New Year's Day. So, it was our intent to try to be off on the real holiday if at all possible.
Is there any questions for Ms. Pinnell?
I think the way around that would be to change our hours so that we're open 7 days a week, and then it wouldn't be a problem.
It would still be a holiday issue, though.
Okay.
Well, it would, but then the public would understand, much like the sheriff's department, we could say that then that would be the only day that we were closed, so we had the 7-day shift. But that's my only question. I think if we change one, then we're going to have other departments coming to us, and it's confusing to the public no matter which way we do it, but that's my opposition to it.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Johnson. Thank you very much, Ms. Pinnell. Any other questions, comments, or can I have a motion on item 40?
I make a motion to approve item 40, approve Mohave County Libraries to be closed on the actual holiday when that holiday falls on a Saturday and open on the observed Friday.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Item 43, approve the Office of Management and Budget to begin working on the following projects for the County Administrator, Elections Director, Sheriff, Public Health, Development Services Director, and the Recorder. Also approve the report of routine OMB projects and business authorized and requested by the Board of Supervisors, County Administrators, elected officials, and department heads, including completed business for March through mid-May 2015. Supervisor Johnson.
Motion for discussion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
The question I had, now it won't come up. on one of your projects you had here, which one open? The Laserfish isn't working, but it was one that's been completed, but it's in a draft form. Okay, now it came up. And it's never come back to the board. It was regarding the promotion of employees or reclassifications. I'm not trying to find it here. You know which one I'm referring to, Mr. Hepler?
Yes, Gene Hepler, Director of the Office Management and Budget, Chairman Moss, Supervisor Johnson. We did an internal audit that was requested by one of the board members on promotion, reclass, and raises.
Yes.
And we provided that, and then that was a closed item, but we still had to report completed in a draft form.
When can the board expect to get the final completed copy?
If requested, we can provide it to all the board members.
Okay, the things that you work on, aren't those normally provided to all the board members, or?
Usually are, unless a particular board member requests an item, we usually respect their, when they ask for something.
All right, well, I would like to receive a copy, since that's part of your,
Yes, sir.
thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I have one question for Mr., I forgot my role for a moment. I'll start with Supervisor Angus. Do you have any questions for Mr. Hepler? No. Supervisor Bishop?
No.
Supervisor Watson?
None.
I have one question, Supervisor, I'm sorry, I'm promoting you now again. Mr. Hepler, is the report on public lands transfer mechanisms and the economic impacts, not just to the county, but to various political subdivisions within the county. What's the ETA on that right now?
I am trying to wrap it up before I leave. We're pretty close on it. If you would care, I have a storyboard up in my office that shows what we've received. We received last week from the assessor the information that we needed to look at all the tax districts. We also are including a request that was put in about Mohave County-owned property. We're including that into it. It's one of the areas we talked about where we have roughly 200 parcels of land that we can look at to put on the tax rolls. But we are pulling it together, and my staff is working diligently on it. That's one of our top projects.
So roughly the ETA is sometime on or before June 13th?
Yes.
Excellent.
Wait till the very end.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Hepler. We do appreciate your time.
I do have one other area that I want to talk to a little bit that I think that Chairman Moss and Supervisor Johnson had some questions about it. It was the one project that we've been working on the Affordable Care Act. There was some concerns that where we were moving forward on that. Would you like me to expand on that, Supervisor Johnson?
If you can do it in like roughly a minute or so.
Yes.
We have a very long
Yes.
agenda.
Yes. One of the things we looked at that in February of 2014, we were asked to look at the Affordable Care Act and inmates and covering inmates. What we have done, working with the Sheriff's Department and the commander or director of the jail and the sheriff, we have drafted and approved an IGA with access. So now that inmates are covered with access within 24 hours after they've been admitted to the hospital. And in fact, an example, we recently had an inmate that had to go to the hospital and access covered all their costs rather than go into our aggregate. We also have the sheriff was very instrumental working with the legislators to get the Bill 2105 passed, which allows, removes the population clause, allows inmates that go into hospital care to be accessed. This last Thursday, along with the jail and the Sheriff's Department, and we're getting probation on board with it, there's a new program that allows access, and it's called the Medical Administrative Claims and Targeted Case Management Opportunities for Public Safety. We'll be working with Access and Probation and the Sheriff's Department to see if we can reduce the cost of managing care of probationaries and inmates. San Diego County has implemented this, and they've realized somewhere between 30 to 75% cost savings or return from the probation officers logging in with the case management we do, so we're looking into that. So those are some of the things that we implemented under the Affordable Care Act and moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hepler.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I've got to say that, through the years, OMB wasn't my idea to start it, but they have been saved the county tremendous amounts of money.
Thank you for that, Supervisor Johnson, and thank you, Mr. Hepler.
Thank you.
Going on to item 43, may I have a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Going on to the public hearings, item 48. I'm opening the public hearing on discussion of possible action, Ray, adoption of Mohave County Ordinance Number 2015-04 to update the currently adopted Mohave County building codes to the 2012 editions of the International Code Council codes and the 2011 National Electrical Code, and incorporating the amendments developed by the Mohave County Building Code Advisory and Planning and Zoning Commission. The existing fee schedule will be implemented unchanged to administer the building inspection program in the unincorporated areas of Mohave County. This was recommended for adoption by the Building Code Advisory Board on April 30, 2015 by a vote of 6-1, and the Planning and Zoning Commission on May 13, 2015 by a unanimous vote. I do have people signed up to speak on this item. Two exactly. I'll start with Paul Selberg. Mr. Selberg, if you can approach and state your name, address, your comments will be limited to approximately 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chairman and Supervisors and staff. My name is Paul Selberg. I'm 3698 North Reniford Way, Lake Havasu City, Arizona. I just want to mention that I was on the Building Code Advisory Board, and I'm also on the advisory boards of 3 other cities in the county. And I just want you understand that this committee was the most open way to hear different public input, as well as the board members' input in a thorough review of the code. Lake Havasu recently adopted the Old Dove Code, as well as Kingman. And as far as I know, there weren't any public hearings whatsoever to hear items that would be suggested by the public or the board members. So I just think it was a very fair and open hearing, and they came up with some good affordable cost savings that I'm sure that the county and the contractors would be happy with. And also I did a little bit of research, and there is a National Association of Home Builders on a nationwide venue. Were also had given their input on the codes, and they look at affordability as well. So I think we gave everybody a fair shake, and I think we came up with some good amendments to make it affordable and still cover what was necessary to do a quality building.
Thank you very much, Mr. Selberg. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Selberg? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker to sign up is Mehdi Azarmi. Mr. Azarmi. And in case the public is unaware, Mr. Azarmi and Mr. Selberg are both my appointees to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I think they've both done fabulous jobs.
Thank you. Chairman Moss, Supervisors, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Most of Arizona cities and counties blindly adopted IBC 2012 and passed the unnecessary extra cost of construction to the end users. Mohave County, under the direction of Director Hunt, is the only jurisdiction that we know of that invited professionals and professional members of the community to review and dissect the IBC 2012. Professionals like Toby Orr, a civil engineer, commercial contractor with over 50 years of construction experience in the county and tri-state area. Paul Silberg, a very well-known architect with over 40 years of experience in all aspects of construction and architecture. Keith Walker, a very well-experienced commercial electrical contractor in Mohave County. Fire chiefs of Bullhead City and City of Kingman with their vast education and experience in fire engineering and safety. And 3 other well-qualified general contractors and subcontractors who are actively involved in construction industry for more than 20 to 30 years. Work and review of these volunteered Code Advisory Committee members in 18 months resulted to soften and take the unnecessary sharp corners out of the code and tailor this building code that is today before you to have a 2012 body and a 2006 engine. Furthermore, the Code Advisory Committee and Planning and Zoning Commissioners had the opportunity to receive comments and get to know City of Kingman and City of Lake Havasu City's experiences with IBC 2012. This item is not a political item. It is a safety, marketing, and EDA item that, if it is adopted, leaves us alone for 6 or more years. The Code Advisory Committee and Planning and Zoning Commission, after careful review and proper revision, recommend to the Board of Supervisors the approval of the revised IBC 2012. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ozarmi. Does anyone have any questions? I'll start to my right.
I have a
Supervisor
couple of
Angus.
questions. So this is something that came before you a couple of years ago, correct?
We started in 2013.
And there was a pretty intensive review on it. I heard it took about 7 months,
Or more.
and it was voted down.
That was not the case. We tabled it.
Okay, you tabled it.
Right.
And now it comes back again, and how long did the process go this time?
We completed the review session, and we took all the information that we needed, understanding what the Code 2012 is offering compared to what we had before us, which is 2006. And, after we got to that point, because it was fairly new item, and some of, the committee members like Toby Orr reviewed that 75% of the counties adopted that, but yet there was not enough information. There was no, in terms of the urgency, there was nothing at that time, pushing the item. That's why it was decided to, stop that table.
And why the urgency now?
The urgency is now because, Supervisor Angus, we are in 2015. And the code that we are basically using is a 2006. And it is very important, from when I said EDA, it's very important to understand that, we have some sophisticated home buyers these days that when they come to our area and they're going to ask, what code you're building under, and I say it's a 10-year-old building, it is not going very well. We want to make sure that, we would be able to have a code that would be updated, but at the same time use common sense. Unfortunately, IBC, practicing over 35 years, it is one size fits all. Everybody from Michigan to Minnesota to Arizona with extreme 2 different climate, they use the same code. It is the common sense and application that each jurisdiction is going to apply to be able to tailor what it is good for that community and the county. So for that reason, I think it is very important that, although it is being offered every 3 years, it is very good practice. So the review is already done, the time was invested on it, and this way we would be able to adopt a code that is going to be harmless to the builders, to the community, and as well as, leave us alone for 6 years.
You sure they're going to leave us alone? I mean, there are more rules and regulations, like any time you're going to change codes, right? how can you be so sure they're going to leave us alone? I mean, we're talking about the federal government. You know, you let them in, the camel under the tent, all of that stuff. That is my concern. That's the concerns I'm hearing from some of the builders. You know, I understand that this was looked at by P&Z, and, you know, there was this building code board that, again, took 7 months and put it aside because they had some grave concerns that I understand, and, you know, I'm sure we're going to disagree on this, that they still have grave concerns about. You know, there's some of the contractors that you mentioned, and they're all well-respected, and I have absolutely nothing. But, you know, these are people who work for the county and, you know, see things differently. I don't know if now's the time to say it, but I want more time. I'm not comfortable voting on this today because, you know, we've had so many things thrown at us at the last minute with the budget. I'm hearing new information that I'm not very happy with. And there's some people, and one of the gentlemen that did vote no against it, he wanted to come talk about it and give his presentation. I thought was very interesting because he's looking at it from a whole other way. I know builders and you guys, you're looking at it from, you know, administration and codes, but we're looking at it as federal, again, more federal intrusion, more ways the federal government gets their hooks into us, and that's what we've been fighting about on a lot of different areas. So I'm going to respectfully ask that we table this for, is this the time to do this, or do we have to close the
I
public
believe
hearing?
public hearing's still going.
The public hearing's still going. So, all right, well, I have a lot of questions that I would like to have more people who are on the other side here. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here, and I didn't find out until the last minute. So I thank you for coming up and explaining that, and that's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, may I elaborate on that?
Yes, certainly. I'm sorry. I turn off my microphone when others are speaking, and sometimes I forget. Yes, you may add additional information. The public hearing is ongoing.
Chairman Moss, Supervisor Angus, when you're talking about, you know, contractors and builders, and we are part of the administration or something like that, I am actually a builder. I built over 700 homes in this tri-state area, and you know, I'm about to start on 3 subdivisions with very large quantity of homes. So it would directly impact me if there was any issues there. The gentleman that you are referring to was looking at a bigger issue. He was referring to grants. He was referring to, you know, not even accepting any grants, federal grants in the Mohave County because we don't want the federal government interfering with us. That has nothing to do with what basically we had on the before us, which is the IBC 2012. And furthermore, we had ample opportunity that we brought it to the public, and the builders that you elaborated on, they were part of our meeting. We assigned, just like anything else, a self-study to go back, review it, come back, and let us know if there is any sharp corners that we missed. And you know, there was none. There was no additional comment. Furthermore, the beauty of this system that you have in Mohave County is that if we are going to get to one of those wild ghosts that is going to show up before us, we can put it on the agenda and we can basically eliminate it if there is such a thing, which at this time I don't believe there is one. All the cost factors that, you know, right now City of Lake Havasu City and other jurisdictions are going to be imposed on, all of those were well studied without sacrificing a safety. That was basically a part of our package that we provided. So a lot of people with a lot of experience invested a lot of time based on the direction that the Mohave County had. And what you see before you is basically well-analyzed IBC code.
I just want to pick up on one thing you said. You said it's not about grants and that this gentleman who voted against it. But, Mr. Hunt, when we had a conversation, you did tell me that if we didn't pass these codes, that we wouldn't be eligible for some grants and that insurance rates would go up and all these sort of things that, to me, are a bit of a scare tactic. Do you want to address that, Mr. Hunt?
Mr. Hunt, if you can approach. And thank you very much, Mr. Azami. You can step down. We may call you back up, depending on how things go.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Angus. Supervisor Angus, what I told you was everything was right, and I'm saying the same thing. I never changed anything. This item became timely because the Planning Zoning Commission ordered us back in 2013, and I need to correct that, they never ever denied this. They continued that back in 2013, and if I may read the motion at that time, this evaluation or update of the currently adopted Mohave County Building Codes, 2012 editions, and the International Code Council Codes 2011 National Electric Code for a period of at least 6 months, but no more than 1 year, or until the state adoption of the 2012 Fire Code necessitates reconsideration and continuing the use of the currently adopted Mohave County Building Codes per County Ordinance 2009-02. So basically what they directed us to do is wait until it becomes more timely, which at this time, one of the main issues is that the state is adopting the 2012 fire codes. If the county doesn't adopt the 2012 building codes, it will be confusing for contractors because they have to comply regardless. What our code is, regardless what we adopt here today, they have to comply with the more stringent 2012 fire codes. The other issue is that becomes timely, and that probably answers your question a little more directly, is that we were notified recently by ISO, which is an insurance agency, is a nationwide insurance agency that provides the information to all insurance agents and financial institutions in the county and nationwide, and they rate the counties. And they told us very clearly, black and white, if we don't adopt a more recent building code, then our rating will go down to 9 out of 10, which is down at the bottom. Currently, we would get a rating of 3 or 4, which is a fairly good rating. And also, the flood control insurance rates will go up, and that's a mandatory insurance, and there is no question that will go up for everybody because our rating will drop. Now, in addition to that, what I told you, and I think it's in the memo that I gave to the board, that the FEMA, the federal government, and whether we like the federal government or not, but they give us grants, and we are very proud of that, actually, that in the past 5 years, we got about $2.8 million of grants, and these are actual projects that we spend in Mohave County. These are 2 projects going on right now. So we have a chance of losing those grants in the future. Now, in addition to that, I may add, talking about grants, because of our good efforts, because the Mohave County Flood Control District, and only because of that, we are getting grants for each city right now. We're getting a grant for the city of Kingman, we're getting a grant for the city of Bullhead City, and also for Lake Havasu City at $200,000. Now, these are facts, and yeah, we do have a chance of losing those because what the insurance agencies explained to us, and whether I like it or not, I don't agree with it either, personally, but they tie it to the building codes. And the building codes is one of the actually #1 item because it's a safety code. And the way FEMA operates, that if we don't have a more modern building code, then we don't meet their requirements, so we are not this privileged agency that gets these grants. And having said that, we are probably, our community, Mohave County, gets more grants than anybody else in Arizona. That's just a fact. And because of our good efforts. So this is what at stake at this point. And again, if I may just add that the building codes are adopted every 3 years, actually, by most states and jurisdictions throughout the nation. And we skipped the 2009 building code adoption because of the economy and so forth. And so we started talking about adopting the 2012 in 2013. And it was discussed and it was continued by the Planning Zoning Commission. So these are the issues that happened, and that's why we wanted to bring it in front of the board to make a business decision.
Okay, so FEMA told you that you wouldn't get grants if we didn't up the building code?
What FEMA told us that they evaluate Mohave County on many factors, and we are in the process of being evaluated. We are in the process, and they're going to make their decision probably early fall or late summer. And adopting the building code is one of the major factors, actually probably the most important factor.
And you said you didn't...
If we don't, they told us very clearly that our CRS rating will drop.
Okay, and if you said that you didn't pass it in 2009 because of the economy, well, if it's that important and if it's all these other things, if this whole domino effect,
yes.
Why would the economy stop you?
Well, we had a recession in 2008, and the contractors were suffering, didn't want to impose any new requirements. The new codes have new requirements in them, typically. And plus, what FEMA requires and the insurance agencies require that we adopt building codes every 5 years. They don't require us to adopt every 3 years. So that's why we are still on the 2006 building codes. We skipped the 2009 because that time it wasn't important at all. That's the fact. We still kept our ratings. We still kept our insurance rating. We still kept our CRS ratings. And we didn't want to cause any hardship to the local economy. So as Mr. Azarmi explained, this time the economy is still a concern, of course, very much a concern. So that's why we did it a little different than City of Kingman or Lake Havasu or other counties did. We went to the building community and we asked them that which items could cause you trouble, which items would be costly. And they identified, we have, I didn't count, but probably a couple of dozen items that we are amending out of the codes, which caused trouble for the contractors, could be costly, considering the economy. But even taking out those items, we would still have a 2012 building code, as Mr. Azarmi put it eloquently, that we would have the, by name, the 2012 code, but we would take out the sharp edges.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, unless you have questions.
I do not. Supervisor Johnson.
As you know, I always push you to update these faster than what you do. I'm not sure if you were here, Mr. Hunt, but when I came into office, the county didn't really do anything with building permits outside of the 3 major cities. The only kind of inspection by the county was setbacks. And we saw homes built that were substandard. And the board today is still handling some of those substandard homes that were built through the use of our funds to try to clean them up, mitigation. The people not understanding, because people come from some other area, that we didn't have anything, or if we don't adopt and keep our codes up to date, they buy a house expecting these things to be in there, and then they find out we're using something that's outdated. I think, while I understand what Supervisor Angus is saying, that we don't want to be dictated to, I think the standards have to be uniform. I think it will affect our just our quality of life here. If we don't continue to bring it up, then we'll be seen as, like a third world county as far as the building standard of buildings go. Are you still seeing, because I believe, I get confused between you, Mr. Letowski, on who handles those things, but with the standard of the homes that we find that are abandoned and aren't up to quality, those are basically in the, as opposed to the cities who have always had, codes and inspections, we have a higher percentage in the unincorporated areas than you would say in the cities?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, we have, I estimating, when I started in 2009, I thought we had hundreds of these homes that were not built properly, but there's probably thousands that are not built to any building codes, and they're really a safety hazard. And these are safety codes, after all. And, when you talk with the ISO, the insurance agency people, they give you examples, and I did talk with them, and they say, look at the Nepal earthquake. Every one of those buildings that were upgraded to the current code, they're still standing. The ones they were not, they killed a lot of people, and they say, well, it doesn't happen here, but it can. Or the other example that they used at the city of Mexicali, along the border, after a tornado went through there, from aerial photos, you could tell clearly where the border was, because everything on the Mexican side was wiped out, and the American side, there was no damage, because they built to the code. So there's an expectation nationwide that the jurisdictions adopt the building codes. Most states adopt the building codes without giving an option to the local governments. And so all surrounding states adopted the codes, and all Arizona counties adopted the 2012 building codes, except Graham and Greenlee counties. Those are the tiny little counties. And Lake Havasu City just adopted, Kingman adopted a couple of years ago. So yeah, we are behind, because the way I understand, before 1985, there were no building codes in Mohave County. In 2007, only certain areas were under the building code requirements. So there was a lot of construction that went on, and there's a lot of issues out there that, yes, we are facing these days.
Thank you. That's the only question.
Can I just follow up on something?
Absolutely. Supervisor Angus.
Okay, just to be clear, if you have something built after 2006, and, you know, the standards that in 2006, I mean, your analogy of things that happened on the Mexican border, I mean, they're not, I mean, it's just ridiculous. They're not going to blow away in a hurricane or come down in an earthquake. 2006, between 2006 and now. I mean, it hasn't changed all that much. And how many more sort of rules and regulations are there in this new code?
Well, Supervisor Angus, you are absolutely right, and I apologize. I don't mean that buildings would collapse. Mohave County has the 2006 building codes, and they have adequate, call it lateral force design for earthquake and wind, and the 2000 codes are effective today.
Yeah.
They will protect people. We would get into that situation if you decided not to adopt any building codes.
Exactly.
Then we would definitely get into that situation.
Exactly, and no one is saying we shouldn't have building codes and standards. That's, you know, that's ridiculous. What we're talking about here is allowing the federal government to get their hooks in more, and we just do it. We do it, and I'm not saying we're not going to do it. I'm just saying I really think we need to talk about it, and we need to talk about it as a community and let people know they always have unintended consequences. When I ran for office, I said I was going to talk to the people it affected, and I know they have opportunities. Builders are busy. I mean, unless you are involved in this community and on these commissions, I mean, people just go about their business, and then before they know it, they have these new things that they have to read and go through and spend money getting in. And this thing that it's not going to cost any money, I don't believe that for a second. That's not going to cost more money. I believe it will. But and again, it's not part now because it's still the public hearing, but thank you very much for that very in-depth explanation.
Yeah. And if may I just add one more thing, that again, we went through with the local contractors and the board and tried to identify every item. And actually, we borrowed from Lake Havasu City, from their building division, what they identified as concern, even though they adopted it. But we amended those. And what I just wanted to emphasize that the board can amend these codes anytime. If there is an item that is costly, that is ridiculous, or causes more bureaucracy, the board can anytime amend it. We make amendments to our ordinances, our other ordinances all the time. And so we made an effort to identify those items that could be bureaucratic and costly, but I think did a good job with a lot of local contractors, but it could be others, and it could be amended any time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hunt. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item before I close the public hearing?
I think I would.
Well, you're a supervisor. You can speak whenever you like.
I thought I'd never get the opportunity.
Go ahead.
You know, I have to agree with Supervisor Angus. Nobody likes the federal government in county business or your own personal business, but we sure do like the grants, and we need the grants. So I think if this is going to affect our insurance rating and our flood control rating, and we've had meetings and meetings, and, this has been going for 2 years. It was tabled, from what I understand and from what I've read in the minutes, because they were waiting for the state fire marshal to adopt these new rules and regulations, which is being done now. So, like Supervisor Angus, I like to talk to the people it's going to affect, and I've got several family members that are building contractors, both in Maricopa County and Mohave County, and I did speak to them. And I also attended the Kingman Builders Association luncheon meeting and was told by the chairman that they, as a group, are supportive of these new changes. In fact, what I was told was that many of the commercial contractors are building these codes anyway because it's just good business. So some of the private contractors building residential homes are also building to them. There was one family member that did state that he just doesn't want to look up a new code, and he was against it. But the majority of the contractors that I talked to were in favor of it, and I think if we don't approve these, we're going to get so far behind that Mohave County's going to have a hard time catching up. So that's what I have to add.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public hearing portion of this item before I close the public hearing? Going once, going twice, I am now closing the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Are there any comments or requests from the supervisors? I believe I can treat your one statement as being a motion to continue this item.
Right, it has been going on for a long time. I'm asking for just 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks. I want to table this for 2 more weeks so everyone can get their voice heard, so the public can hear the other side of the story, and then we'll feel comfortable, because right now I just don't feel comfortable voting on this.
Is there a second? As a matter of courtesy only, because I do intend to vote for these revised building codes, I will second your motion to continue. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I'm not really sure we got that, so maybe we should go by roll call.
Supervisor Watson?
No.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
No.
Supervisor Bishop?
No.
And Chairman Moss?
Yes. Motion for a continuance has failed, 3-2. Can I have another motion? Is there any other discussion on item 48 of the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion for the adoption of the current building code.
There's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. All righty, that item is done. Going on to 49. I'm opening the public hearing for discussion and possible action. Ray, adoption of Mohave County Ordinance Number 2015-05, limiting and prohibiting loud, disruptive, and unnecessary noise in the unincorporated county areas and providing for enforcement and penalties. Commission recommended approval as recommended by the department and the Zoning Ordinance Review Committee. There's one thing I will have to state is that the Development Services has presented me a memo. They would like to have the sentence, which is at Part 2, Section C on page 2, to actually read prima facie evidence of violations, period. Any of the following shall constitute evidence of a prima facie violation of subsection A or B of this section, end quote. This is to correct some typographical errors within that sentence, or within that portion. Having opened a public hearing on item 49, I have 2 people signed up to speak on it. Mr. Kenneth Works, if you could approach, state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes to make comments.
My name is Kenneth Works. I live at 2250 Crystal Springs Road out in Yucca. My zip code is 86438. I just want to be brief. I'm against the county ordinance because my nearest neighbor's a couple miles away and we never bother each other. I don't think that it's necessary to have a county ordinance. I think unincorporated areas where people live close enough to where noise is going to bother each other, they need to incorporate and have their own governments with their own police forces and go around and set up their own rules for how much noise is allowed. Noise is subjective. Whoever's making the noise obviously thinks that it's necessary. And that's all I had to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. The second person signed up to speak is Norm Guerra. Mr. Guerra, if you can step up to the podium, state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes to make comments to the board.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Supervisors. Norman Guerra, 2360 Devlin Avenue, Kingman, Arizona. I happen to live right with Devlin Wash behind my house, and there is a proliferation of off-road vehicles running up and down the roads through the wash. After we get a little bit of rain, we get a lot of four-wheelers just running up and down there, mudding. Many times there are motorcycles, vehicles with these resonating chambers running up and down the streets, or motorcycles that do not have any kind of muffling system on their bikes. At times, I can hear vehicles coming down Lomita from where the college is at, headed towards Northern. I can hear them 7, 8 blocks away. My walls kind of rattle around with some of these vehicles. There's boombox cars. You know, they go through, and all you hear is this bass, and everything starts rattling in your house. And how many of you have been laying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, and somebody drives by, and it's like, there you are awake, and it's like, what just happened? Did we have an earthquake? So I think there needs to be something done. I haven't seen the specs on this new ordinance of what you would be considering excessive noise, but I know when I'm sitting in my house and I can hear a vehicle 5 blocks away on Northern, like street dragging, I shouldn't be able to hear that. Somebody drives by on my street and all I hear is their music from their vehicle, and I can't hear my television or something. Something needs to be done with that. From what I understand from Supervisor Bishop, that the wash, the levee roads on the wash are all county property, and she expressed that unless you have specific authorization, that using these county roads, is illegal. They can be trespassing. So I would like to know what these specs and fines and stuff were to stop this noise and intrusion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to item 49 of the agenda before I close the public meeting? Seeing none, I'm closing the public meeting. Supervisors, is there any discussion or is there a motion that to be had? If you do make a motion, I would request that you include the addition that I read following item 49, which is prima facie evidence of violations in the following shall constitute evidence of prima facie violations of subsection A or B of this section.
I'd like to make a motion for adoption.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? I will make one comment, and this is only for purposes of development services. I was contacted by CRIBA, and they stated that Lake Havasu has something very similar on the books. CRIBA, for those who don't know, is the Builders Association of Lake Havasu. But they say it's a 2-tiered start work on construction, depending on the time of year, because at some times of the year, a 5 a.m. start work is fine, and other times of the year, a 6 a.m. start work is fine. And I would encourage you to engage with Havasu and bring this back to us to take care of those little concerns they might have. Okay.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Supervisor Bishop.
I understand that this ordinance is going to be brought back within a 1-year period to see how it's working out. It's not a perfect ordinance by any means, but it adds to what we didn't have before, and it's better than nothing. And like Supervisor Moss said, it's a good start, and we can amend it and change it if we need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing this passes 5-0. Going on to item 50. I am now opening the public hearing. Discussion and possible action. Adoption of Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2015-077, accepting the road maintenance petition that's Surrey Loop from Lazy YU Drive to Tomahawk Drive, approximately 1.18 miles, with a general north-south course and general direction to be accepted in the Mohave County regular road maintenance system for regular maintenance in the Lazy YU Ranch area. This is coming from Public Works. Public Works, do you have anything to say on this?
Chairman Moss, members of the board, this particular item in resolution is to accept a little over 1 mile segment of Surrey Loop, which is in the Lazy YU subdivision. It connects to Lazy YU Boulevard at 2 locations, and it is for the acceptance for maintenance as an unsurfaced roadway in Mohave County's regular road maintenance system. Staff has inspected the roadways and also received engineered stamped as-built plans assuring that the road was completed to Mohave County standards, and staff does recommend the roadway for acceptance.
Mr. Letowski, I have a question. Or first, does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Letowski?
No.
No. My question is, was this put through the Transportation Commission?
Chairman Moss, no, we have not presented this through the Transportation Commission on premise that this does not entail establishing a county highway. This is a resident petition for accepting a roadway into the county's county's regular road maintenance system.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, County Administrator.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, the Transportation Commission deals with certain things that are specific to their bylaws. They deal with road improvements and capital improvements. This is a maintenance issue, and the maintenance issues don't go in front of the Transportation Commission.
I do have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Johnson.
Why did you decide to put this on the regular agenda when mostly we see these things all on the consent?
Chairman Moss, Supervisor Johnson, good question. This particular action concerns accepting a roadway into the county's regular road maintenance system. In most instances, we see private individuals and or entities only petition up to a tertiary maintained road. This road, like tertiary maintained roads, are completed at no cost to Mohave County, hence another aspect of why we don't take this in front of the Transportation Commission. But because this was a petition for regular road maintenance, as we have done in the past through the board, we brought this in front of a public hearing type forum.
Okay, and just so they don't see anything, I'm picking on this one group. I would have voted against all the ones on consent just because I think we shouldn't be adding, but I didn't want to pull them all off every meeting, so.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Johnson. Any other questions for Mr. Letowski? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Letowski. All right, is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this item before I close the public hearing, excuse me? Seeing none, I close the public hearing. Is there any further discussion or motions to be had on item 50 of the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Supervisor Angus was looking at me quizzically. It's 1.18 miles. I'm not really sure if we can maintain our other roads that we should be adding to that right now. That's the only reason. So 3-2. We are now out of the public hearings. We are now into the regular agenda. Item 51, discussion of possible action. Revisions of the anti-littering ordinance number 2002-03 for the purpose of removing the 5-day discretionary or notice period. This has been continued by the board at the March 16, April 6, May 4th, and May 18th meetings, which I believe makes it the longest running string of continuances we've had so far this year.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to continue. I still have not received the information.
I'll second the motion for continuance. I have not received the information either.
There's a motion and a second for a continuance of this item, which means this is going to break all sorts of records. Is there any further discussion on the pending motion to continue? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
That one is a 3-2. The items would be Supervisor Watson and Johnson, the number of prosecutions under this ordinance. Is that
That
correct?
was mine, yes.
Okay.
Didn't we get that? I thought we did get that.
Nope.
I did get that.
If
You share it
whoever's,
with
if
me?
you could, Mr. Hendricks, if you can confer with the various department heads and elected officials who have access to that information, make sure that they confirm that it was sent to each of the supervisors. Okay.
Be curious if the other board members have it, if they could let us know. I'm willing to go right ahead today if they give me the numbers. I don't know about Supervisor Watson if he has something else.
The motion has been voted on, so we're going to move on to item 52. If you can bring this stack to the next meeting, and hopefully between now and then, Supervisor Watson and Supervisor Johnson will get the materials that they've requested. Item 52, discussion of possible action. Ray, approve the submission of a letter to the Governor of Arizona requesting the designation of a Mohave La Paz. One second here. The designation of a Mohave La Paz Workforce Development Area pursuant to Public Law Number 113-128, Section 106B, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and authorize the chairman of the Mohave County Board of Supervisors to sign the letter and any subsequent petition forms required by the Arizona Department of Economic Security and Arizona Commerce Authority. Is there a motion on this item?
Let's to accept or do it.
Second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item 53, discussion and possible action. Ray, appointment of the interim risk management director effective June 2nd, 2015, and salary placement determinations. I placed this on the agenda so we didn't have a repeat of the Mr. Prince situation. I have no backup information because I have no opinion one way or the other. It's just what do we want to do on this issue since our our current risk management director will be leaving. We have not completed the interview process, and do we need an interim? So I'll turn this over to County Administrator Hendricks to give us his thoughts, and then we'll go ahead from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The risk manager position is an extremely important position for the county, obviously. They deal extensively with human resources. We also look to risk management to verify our insurance requirements and other things. So they're very busy. They also have the ability to settle certain small insurance claims. So I do have more than one member of the risk management team that is applying for the risk manager position. Risk management, the manager works directly for the board. My suggestion, at least during the interim, is I believe that the risk management department functions very well on a day-to-day basis for the decisions on how to proceed with different settlements or larger issues. Generally, the risk manager brings those to my attention, and if necessary, we bring them to the board. So my suggestion to the Board of Supervisors at this time would be, until we can find a replacement risk manager, since I also work directly for the board, that I be appointed as the interim risk manager at no additional compensation and work with his staff on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. Is there any other comments from, let's start with, this is kind of impromptu. Mr. Ekstrom, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I don't.
Okay. Is there any other comments or questions from the board as a whole on the interim manager position? I'll start with Supervisor Johnson.
Mr. Ekstrom, are we allowed to change the duties per our contract with Mr. Hendricks without compensation or without doing anything with the contract?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, I believe you are.
All right. The only other, I would think that Mr. Hendricks would have been one of my choices to fill in. But But the only other thing is, and hopefully it'll be covered with our new searches, that bothered me was when, in his position as the administrator, he's talking about how he and the risk manager are working to solve things when they work for the board. That was the only question I had.
There is a bit of a quandary or gray area there until we actually appoint a new risk manager. Supervisor Watson, do you have anything else to add or any questions?
Actually, I have nothing to add, and I think it is a good idea for the interim to be the county
Okay.
person.
Supervisor Bishop.
I think it's great. Thank you for stepping up.
Supervisor Angus.
I'm not sure, because I'm just hearing about it right now for the first time. I haven't really had thought to it, so, I don't know.
I will say that the reason I put it on the agenda is because I didn't know either. So I wanted to deal with it since Mr. Prince, I think, leaves.
If I were to think that we were going to quickly get somebody, it would be all right, but history tells me that that's not usually the case. So I'm not so sure about this, to tell you the truth.
Okay. County Administrator Hendricks, what's the ETA on bringing a list of potential applicants to the board's review and consideration?
I think, Mr. Chairman, not answering for the administrator, it's our, you asked me to fill out the form, I brought that back today, so that'll be the board's decision, I guess, probably more than the administrators.
I assume that we're getting applicants, though, as we speak.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Johnson, we have opened the position. We tried to advertise nationwide. We have received applicants. I was going to review those applicants and then submit all the applications to the Board of Supervisors with recommendation on who would be staff's choice to interview, but it would be up to your decision who you would choose.
And we would be also taking in Supervisor Johnson's
Yes,
commentary.
Supervisor Johnson made the motion last meeting to go ahead and have that decision on how we proceed with the applications, the decision of the board. Now, during the interim, I have taken the liberty to take a look at those applications and review them, but I've done that internally and wasn't prepared to make any type of recommendation to the board unless we, until the board decided how they wanted to proceed.
And that will be dealt with at the next meeting?
This meeting.
At this meeting? Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. All right, so fairly soon would be my guess.
Mr.
We're going to
Chairman?
deal with the standards. Yes, Supervisor
I
Johnson.
guess Supervisor Angus brings up a good point. The only other solution I could see, because if it does go too long, if we're looking at, and I don't know how long Mr. Hendricks would want to do this without jeopardizing either job that he does, but if we are looking at an extended period of time, Mr. Hendricks probably wouldn't be the best choice.
Okay. So, does that help even a little bit answer your question? I'm not sure it does. Okay. All right. Do you want to is there a motion to appoint Mr. Hendricks for the interim risk management director for the short term pending the board interviewing and selecting a replacement?
I'd like to make a motion, if I could, Chairman, to appoint the county administrator as the interim risk manager for a period not to exceed 6 months.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Supervisor Angus?
That's the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? I'll comment that I think we can get this done quicker than 6 months. That definitely would be inclusive and gives us a drop-dead date. That being said, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
It's 4-1. Okay. Item 54, sitting as the Board of Directors for the Mohave County Television Improvement District. Discussion of possible action, Ray, implementation of an emergency alert broadcast system to deliver important emergency information such as weather information, Amber Alerts, and local incident information targeted to specific areas. Supervisor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. Motion for discussion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I bring this to the board finally as a kind of a follow-up to incident. So let me kind of explain a little bit. The inclusion of the television district into the emergency alert system is one of the final goals as outlined in our Dean Peak after incident report. It is essential that communications to as many affected residents be as complete as possible. The first 6 hours of any large-scale fire incidents related to the disasters, it's pivotal in organizing the total response. Communication is extremely important. After the Dean Peak fire, we recognized that a number of improvements needed to be done to do even a more successful job. And I'll just list them briefly. Was the addition of additional water resources. We added 25 acre-feet of water available. Safer aerial scoop zones in the Pine Lake area and Yellow Pine. Better defined escape routes, basically in the Pine Lake area. And fourth, more fire break established in the Pine Lake area. And number 5, complete communications to the affected residents for evacuation and information. So I bring this to you as the reasons why I would like to implement the emergency alert broadcast system to the TV district. And I've got a number of people that would like to make a presentation. The first being Paul Fleming, the second Byron Stewart, and the third Sheriff McCabe. So if I could have Paul Fleming.
If I can interrupt you briefly, Supervisor Watson, I was remiss in that we do have a call to speak on this item.
Okay.
So it's, I missed it, and I have to apologize to Mr. Stephen Robinson. I will not give you the instructions to speak on this because you know them by now. And then we'll go with the requested speakers from Supervisor Watson.
Sure, certainly.
I'm Steve Robinson, Golden Valley, Arizona, 3439 North Bowie Road. Last July 7th, the board addressed this issue during the setting of the rate. And what was stated, I believe at that time by Attorney Bill Ekstrom, was that the state law does not allow for an emergency broadcast system to be paid for out of the TV Improvement District. In fact, now, even though I'm not an attorney, I can read English, and I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. So it says under subsection A of 1102, 481102, a general statement of the television translator and relay facilities which are proposed to be operated to be provided in the district shall be a part of the statement included. Then on June 6th of 1983, Resolution 1788-A included that very statement that the purpose is the district is necessary to acquire, construct, improve, extend, maintain, and operate television translator and relay facilities for present and future service to the communities in Mohave County. And so based upon all this information, I don't think it's appropriate. It may be very well and good for the county to provide an emergency broadcast system. I just don't believe, based upon what we've read and what we've seen, that the TV Improvement District funds is the appropriate source of funding for that. So that's all I have to say on it, you know, and I do remember quite clearly what Mr. Ekstrom said last July. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now go with the requested speakers from Supervisor Watson.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Paul Fleming come down and give a presentation.
I'm Paul Fleming from WECOM. Thank you for having us. As Mr. Watson, Supervisor Watson pointed out, we were asked to give a presentation on the emergency broadcast system and how it could incorporate into the TV district and the TV translator system. The EAS or the EBS system, EAS stands for Emergency Alert System. EBS is Emergency Broadcast System. Although there is a technical difference, in most cases they're interchangeable in the way that they're used. Mohave County Sheriff's Office presently does have an emergency broadcast system, or an EAS, emergency alert system. That EAS system would be used for such things as earthquakes, forest fires, floods, storms, terrorist hazards, technological and accidental hazards, evacuations, shelter, health epidemics, war, missing persons, murders, prison escapes, kidnappings, etc. Different things of emergency things. The way that the present system works is the Mohave County can send out an emergency alert, which goes to different FM radio stations. It will interrupt the FM radio station and gets broadcast on that FM radio station. If someone happens to be listening to that particular radio station at the time, then they'll hear that emergency alert. So then they'll know what's going on. And on a few slides, we'll go over why it was brought up to basically expand the system. But the present system, in a nutshell, works in that fashion. The reason to expand the emergency alert system in general, I think, is somewhat self-explanatory. The ideas of saving lives, protecting property from a national level, a regional level, a local level, the emergencies, the ability to save money from these different natural disasters, I think is all somewhat self-explanatory. But the reason to expand the present system is what I kind of wanted to go into. The present system uses, like we talked about, the FM and AM radio stations right now. There is no regulatory body between what is sent out from the sheriff's office and these FM and AM radio stations. So if an EAS system or alert is sent out to the radio stations, they might or might not rebroadcast it. There is nothing that guarantees or regulates them updating their broadcast equipment, keeping their broadcast equipment running, or making sure that those messages do get sent out. So if, in the past, the sheriff's office had issues where a system or a message was sent out and it was never rebroadcast. So that emergency was never actually broadcast to the citizens. That's one reason for the upgrade. One, the FM and AM radio stations at certain times of the day could have very limited listeners. For example, in the evening times when people are at home eating dinner, things of that nature, obviously not driving around in their vehicles, the number of listeners would decline quite a bit. At the present time, Mohave County does have a great communication resource in the TV Improvement District that reaches quite a few citizens, which will go in the next couple slides. And it is maintained by Mohave County. So everything from the transport to the translators to the regulation is all maintained by Mohave County. So there is no issue from if a message is sent out to will it be received, will it be rebroadcast, will the citizens receive it, will there be some sort of disconnect from when the message was created to when will it be rebroadcast, since Mohave County controls everything from point A to point Z. And it's always best to have multiple systems in place. That gives you some redundancy. If one system, the AM, FM radio stations are not working, then you always have the redundant way to get a message out, or two ways to reach even more people at a time. Mohave County is the 5th largest by area in the United States and the 2nd largest in Arizona, equating to 13,461 square miles, which is quite a large area to have to cover and get emergency alerts to everyone. There's 18 official wilderness areas, 8 major highways, and over 200,000 people in Mohave County. In order to reach all of those people and reach across that vast area, you would need to have as many different mediums, as many different communication methods to the citizens as possible. At the present time, as I discussed a minute ago, the AM/FM radio stations are the only way that the emergency broadcast system is presently relayed to the citizens. The Sheriff's Office and Emergency Management Division both support the extended reach and the continuing development of the EAS system. It is estimated that over 116.3 million households in the United States have at least one TV. The National Association of Broadcasters in 2012 did a survey showing that 17.8% or 54 million people relied solely on over-the-air broadcasting. They got all their TV via a mechanism like the TV Improvement District. A year later, in 2013, GFK did the same study showing 19.3% of the United States of Americans actually got their TV off air, which was 60 million people. If you extrapolate that out via the Mohave County 2014 census, that would mean 39,248 people in Mohave County would be receiving off-air TV, or would basically be using the services of the Mohave County TV District. That would be an additional 39,248 potential people receiving these emergency broadcasts. So when an ES system is created during a natural disaster, during any other sort of disaster, when a county decides it's necessary to use this system, that's an additional potential 39,248 residents that would receive this message. And of course, then the grapevine effect that's talked about, which those people, of course, call their friends, text message their friends, to let additional people know. So you're just basically increasing the people on top of the FM, AM radio stations that could be saved, property that could be saved, or costs be reduced by adding the EAS system into the TV district as it is right now. The Mohave County TV district supports over 27 TV channels. I know that it's been talked about that the TV district is somewhat narrow, but I think there's some stuff that's been missed. The TV district is actually a perfect fit for something like the EAS or the EBS system. The TV district owns 13 different tower sites, which consist of telecommunication towers, buildings, generators, grounding systems, propane tanks, solar systems, and more. Different groups such as fire departments, the sheriff's office, Game and Fish, BLM, and so many more are all on these different telecommunication sites that the TV district actually maintains, supports, and continues running all the time. So these different entities are already using something that the TV district is supporting. So fitting the EAS system in is actually something that falls right into this, because the TV district is used to supporting these types of systems, these different locations, and so it's actually a perfect fit, and it makes total sense. This is just merely a list of the areas in Mohave County, or that the federal government considers, registered or true Mohave County locations. All of these areas, plus more, are covered under the TV district. So the TV district reaches every area you see listed on this, which I won't read every single one of them. This is a list of the 27 different TV channels that are presently broadcast. And that just shows that there are, on top of the few FM radio stations that the EAS system would presently sent out on, there are a number of different TV channels that people would be watching, whether it be morning time, midday, evening time, et cetera, that they could potentially be receiving these emergency broadcasts on. How it will work. The EAS system interfaces with the present Mohave County emergency broadcast system. Why that's important is that reduces your learning curve. So it's not a matter of purchasing a brand new system, sending a ton of people to training and starting all over again. Since it interfaces into it already, the people that are running the present EAS system will be able to continue doing so and utilize all the new features and the new coverage. It'll take into account basically any signal that's sent in. It converts it into a TV signal, sends it to Hayden Peak. It's all encoded and encrypted, so it can't be stolen, and then it's sent out over all the TV channels. As soon as that EAS or that emergency system ends, then the TV returns back to its original state, and the TV channel continues as it was. Or I guess back to your normal programming, it continues as it was. This is just a kind of a small block diagram that kind of represents the way that the EAS system would be set up if it was implemented in the future. That's it, unless there's any questions in regards to that.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Mr. Fleming?
I have questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Supervisor Angus.
Hello, Mr. Fleming.
How are you today?
I have a lot.
Okay.
You said the sheriff's office had sent out some information to the AM/FM radio stations, but it didn't get broadcast. Can you tell me which emergency that a radio station chose not to relay to its listeners?
I don't believe that they chose not to, as much as since their equipment is not regulated, they're not forced to continue to update it or make sure it's working at any certain time.
Right, but don't you think
just
that if
didn't
there's an
work.
emergency going on in Mohave County, that the radio stations here are going to break into whatever they're doing and put it out there?
The radio stations are not manned 24 hours.
They're not
a day.
mandated, but
No,
you
they're
know,
not
common
manned.
sense, what?
They're not manned, as in there's not always people there 24 hours a day. So if it doesn't automatically work,
Right.
then it didn't work.
Okay, but, you know, then you're, okay.
And I believe that there's other people in the room that might be better to speak to that question
That's
than
okay.
I am.
I don't want to get into that more. I mean, you made a statement that there was one that didn't get put out, and I was just curious to, you used the number 39,000.
Yes.
That there are 39,000. Now, that is the first time in the 4 years I've been talking about the TV district that a number has ever been, because we don't really know how many people use this thing.
Right.
Right? But where'd you come up with 39,000?
Let's see, I don't know what slide number it is. The National Association of Broadcasters in 2012 did a study showing that 17.8% of people in America rely solely on over-the-air TV. 2013, that study was redone, showed it was 19.3%. Actually, there was another study done in the last couple of years showing that the number has gone up another 7.6 million people. That the people are actually migrating from pay TV to either solely internet TV or over-the-air TV.
But we don't know.
So, no,
We
there
don't
isn't
know
there
the
isn't a
numbers
method,
here.
but they should. They're from their reports and from their research, they're showing at this time it's easily over 20% of Americans rely solely on over-the-air TV.
And viewers would have to be watching specific channels at, it's at a specific time to be getting this, right? So it's like anything. I mean, some of the channels that come over the TV district come out of Phoenix, they comes out of Vegas, right? So they're going to be, I've been, on
That's
our
not
thing, it
correct.
said, what?
That's not correct. The way that the system is being designed, it will actually broadcast on every TV station at the exact same time.
No, I'm talking about
throughout
now.
Mohave County.
I'm talking about now.
Oh, right now, yeah. Right now,
Yes.
there is no emergency system.
There's
for
not
Mohave County.
an emergency system, but if there's some kind of emergency, one of the channels is going to break into it.
Well, see, the Vegas, for the most part, a Vegas channel would broadcast Vegas emergencies. Phoenix would broadcast Phoenix emergencies until a later date. This gives the county the ability to broadcast an emergency related to the county with county information, for example, evacuation information for someone on Hayden Peak, or, exact information related particular to that area, not just a blanket, there's a fire in this area. But very specific information that they wanted those people to know if they wanted to give it to them. So.
Okay, is this in response to something that broke down? Did people die? Did people not get information because we didn't have an emergency broadcast system here in Mohave County?
I don't know of anyone.
And while, I'm sorry, I forget your name. Byron, I'm sorry. While he comes up here, I do have an issue. I do not think it's legal to do it. And I do remember that conversation that we had. And so I'm going to ask the Attorney Ekstrom to do a little research in that, because everything I read, there's nothing in it. So, we're going to be expanding it. Do we know how much money this is going to cost us? Do you guys have any kind of estimate?
Yes.
How much?
I think that Von Orr has all that information. But I cannot speak to whether or not it's legal to use the funds in the way that.
I know you
I do
can't.
know
That's why
that-
I'm asking our attorney to do that.
But the FCC, it's not illegal to do this. Like the FCC states that it's not mandatory for a TV district to supply a EAS system, and it is not
Right. But
illegal for them to do
we are a
either.
taxing district that
Right.
was put into place by a vote of the Board of Supervisors, not a vote of the people. So we are under a whole different sort of,
Right.
and that's why I really would like to hear an opinion from our attorney.
Right, I was just saying that it's not illegal to do. I don't know whether the money
Right,
is legal
okay.
or not, so.
Thank you.
Before Byron starts, is there any other questions for Mr. Fleming? Supervisor Bishop.
Yes, I need clarification. This emergency broadcast, would it go over the cable channels as well, or just over the air TV?
Only any cable channels that still pick up over-the-air TV. In the past, there were cable channels that picked up the over-air TV and then they rebroadcast it via cable. We've not yet been able to get the cable stations to verify which channels or if they still get any channels that way. But in the past, yes. Golden Valley Cable, I believe, still does. We've not been able to get Suddenlink to confirm whether or not they still do or they do not. In the past that they did, yes.
That was my only question. Thank you.
Supervisor Watson, anything else for Mr. Fleming?
Nothing for Mr. Fleming. Thank you very much for a very informative presentation.
Thank you for everyone's time. I appreciate it.
Supervisor Johnson, anything for Mr. Fleming? No. I would ask Mr. Fleming if you can get that presentation that you just gave, the slides, to Jenny, our clerk. I noticed that they were not included in the backup material, which means the public, other than those who are watching, won't have the ability to access that information.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I will.
Thank you. Byron, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Chairman Moss, Supervisors, I might be able to clarify a few points, some of the questions that were raised. The county, and I don't have the exact date, but the county does have an emergency alert system or an emergency broadcast system. Their terms are interchangeable. It's actually a system that covers both La Paz and Mohave County. It's been in existence for quite a number of years, a long time before I came here 12 years ago. It's been in existence. There is an emergency, the EAS itself, there is a group of commercial broadcasters that are part of that group, and they have periodic meetings where they cover all aspects of this system in terms of their procedures for activating and testing the system. So there is a system in place, and as Mr. Fleming indicated, it is an automatic system where when the sheriff's office will send out an alert from their office, there's a backup in the Bullhead City PD and also the National Weather Service, so that if we have an emergency anywhere in the county, we can send out an emergency alert to those stations, and it will automatically break into their programming and broadcast this emergency message to the public. However, as Mr. Fleming says, those stations are not manned, so if something is wrong with their equipment, it may not broadcast. However, in many cases, in a lot of the commercial radio systems, the word will get out. However, a lot of people don't always listen to AM, FM, particularly in the evening when they're listening to TV. From an emergency management standpoint, it's extremely important for our emergency messages to have redundancy, a redundant means of getting out to the public. And we've been working with the EAS group itself to be sure that we got everybody in there that could potentially help us on that. I believe some of the cable companies we're working with to get them into the system. If the TV district came into it, it would just be another component of that system. There's no additional expense that would accrue to the county for the sheriff's office or anything else. The equipment is there to broadcast right now, as well as the tower sites for getting the message around to the different commercial radio stations and other entities. And I believe Yvonne Orr's got the information on how much it would cost for the actual equipment at the TV translator district to be able to install that equipment to receive the messages. So that's essentially where we're at. We're also working on a number of other things. Supervisor Watson is correct. After the Dean Peak fire and also after the flooding up in Beaver Dam Littlefield and some flooding actually in Golden Valley last year, we've been working hard to look at different aspects of the situation, how we can improve our messaging to the public. We're working on trying to obtain a new system for automatic phone messages to where if we have a specific area of the county that's impacted by an emergency, we could initiate that system, phone calls to the people within that area. We've got an existing system the sheriff office has in place, but the vendor for that particular system has said they're not going to support it anymore, so emergency management is looking for grant funding to be able to get another system in place based on the cloud, essentially, where we'd be able to reach out in that means. Also, we're working with state emergency management. There is a system, a nationwide system going in that allows text messages, emergency text messages to go out to cell phones that are manufactured after a certain date to warn people of things that are going on in their particular area. But there's drawbacks to all these systems. The phone system, automated phone system, is based on landlines. A lot of people don't have landlines anymore. So when we get that in place, we'll have to reach out on public information to get people to sign up their cell phones. The text messaging system, which will go out to all people that have cell phones manufactured after a certain date, they have the option, those users have the option of turning that off. So the more redundancy we have in being able to reach out, whether it's through commercial radio, whether it's through cable TV, whether it's through the TV district, whether it's through phone messages or texting, the more people we'll be able to reach on any particular type of disaster. And we felt this was a critical situation that was brought to light by the Dean Peak fire. Luckily, in that particular situation, the areas to be evacuated were relatively small, and our sheriff's office, search and rescue, and the fire departments did an excellent job in going door to door and notifying people. But essentially, this is just another tool in the toolbox that doesn't cost very much. We've checked with the FCC, and the FCC actually requires commercial radio stations, TV stations, and cable carriers to be part of an EAS system. They do not require translator stations to be part of the system. It's not required, however, it is not prohibited either. From that standpoint, as Mr. Fleming pointed out from the FCC rules, there's nothing in violation of the federal rules that we're aware of that a TV district cannot come into an EAS system. As a matter of fact, the FCC encourages as many people as possible to enter the system. As far as the expenditure of the TV district funding to buy that limited amount of equipment to go into the system, I leave that up to Mr. Ekstrom and Yvonne Orr on that. And that's, in a nutshell, about what I can say on it.
Does any member of the Board of Supervisors have any questions? I'll start with Supervisor Johnson.
No, is that the last presenter you have, Mr. Watson?
No, I have one more, Yvonne Orr. Actually, two. Sheriff McCabe and Yvonne Orr.
Do you have any questions, Supervisor Watson?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Byron. As I recall, there were a number of people that had to have person-to-person contact in the Dean Peak event, and it was in the evening. And I just thought it was unusual that we couldn't get more of those people out of their homes immediately, although the smoke was evident and some of the smell, but a number of people had to be gone door to door for notification. Do you recall a percentage of that?
Yes, there was quite a bit of door-to-door notification, particularly in the Pinyon Pine evacuation, which was in the evening and sort of a last-minute type of thing when the fire shifted direction. And that door-to-door is always in our plans as a last resort, but obviously if we have other means of reaching out quicker to people if they're watching TV and we can get the word to them that way, we're just that much ahead of the game, and it makes it that much easier for the first responders.
Right. It's just something I wanted to bring to light. Thank you very much, Brian.
Supervisor Bishop.
I have nothing.
Supervisor Angus. I have a comment.
Yes.
You gave us a very nice presentation. I do appreciate that. But why wasn't any of it included in the backup materials?
I can't answer that. It's not my presentation. But I can provide this information to you if that's at any time.
Thank you very much. Who's next, Supervisor Watson?
Sheriff McCabe, would you care to make comment on? Be careful on that new knee.
Well, I'll tell you, I left the walker in the office, Mr. Chairman, board members and staff. No, I can answer some of the questions Supervisor Angus asked. I didn't really sign up for this, but I'll certainly be able to, if I can field any questions. It's an automatic system that we use, the emergency broadcast system, through our dispatch center to a radio station. There was no deaths, or there was, in fact, no emergency when it failed. It was a test. And the test discovered that the system wasn't working, and of course, that's what the tests are for. And we contacted the broadcast station, and it was corrected. And to my knowledge, everything is working sufficiently now. Redundancy is good. There's no guarantees. Are you watching the radio? Are you watching the TV? Are you watching your texts? Very difficult. And ultimately, to be honest with you, when it gets down to a real close emergency, we're going to do door-to-door anyway. We're going to make sure our volunteers and our deputies are out there knocking on the door saying, get out. And with that being said, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I'll start with Supervisor Angus this time. Any questions for Sheriff McCabe?
Thank you for clarifying that for me.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Bishop.
I just have a question. Would you recommend this? Would this help your department?
Any redundancy is
evacuate
going to be a
persons?
benefit, I believe. The more angles that we can reach people, the better it will be, I believe, for the citizens of Mohave County. There's one failure in all of this, though. It's dependent upon electricity. So if there's an electrical failure, which is actually one of my concerns, none of this is going to work.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Watson.
Thank you, Sheriff McCabe.
My pleasure.
Supervisor Johnson.
Sure, I'll get in now. The immediate responses you're talking about, I understand those. My worries, and you brought up part of it, is an extended period where it's a blackout. And that's because I don't believe that Mohave County is going to be the scene of a terrorist attack. I don't think they care about us that much, but there could be attacks on the grid that would shut down Phoenix, LA, Vegas, someplace like that. And I believe that we'll be one of the last places they'll look to fix, because there's not going to be any riots here, none of that. So what I would see, and I appreciate Supervisor Watson bringing this to the board's attention, is something where we can, not so much for the emergency, but if we can somehow hook this in, because we do have the generators. Administrator Hendricks has been working on that with Mr. Hunt, Mr. Letowski, and Byram, to get generators everywhere so we can broadcast or be available to do things 24 hours a day to give updates. So after that initial time when you go to a home and evacuate people, the biggest thing is for people to be able to get the information so they feel safer, so they're not calling you if they can through a 911 system or something and tying your people up. Or so with that, I guess, would that help more if we were able to set a system up so every hour on the hour, every 6 hours, whatever, during an emergency that was overextended, we were giving broadcasts? Can you see that maybe freeing up your people from answering routine calls of,
If we could broadcast into a scenario where they were still have electricity, that would work well. I think maybe portable radios in a one area where people were told to go to in case of emergency. I believe that if we did that in a pre-education manner all throughout Mohave County, put it into the phone books, drilled it into people, this is where you go in case of an emergency. And at that location, then we have the emergency services to address what's going on. I agree. I don't trust the grid, and I think it was built in the 50s. It's really old. A failure in the grid within 3 days, if it's not back up, we're going to have problems. And I'd like to be able to address those more efficiently. Once again, redundancy is good.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you much. Thank you very much, Sheriff McCabe. I appreciate your comments. Supervisor Watson, you had another speaker you wanted to present.
Yes, I'd like to bring you on or to explain the cost possibly on presenting this.
Good morning, Supervisors. During this process, WECOM also did some pricing on this system. There's a couple of aspects that include the equipment only, that we don't have taxes, shipping, or labor estimated in here. But for 9 pieces of equipment, transcoders up on Hayden Peak, we're looking at $56,000. The other aspect for the digital alert system is $8,800. Now, those prices do not include labor, taxes, and shipping. There is one other aspect that was addressed during a recent meeting with emergency management in the Sheriff's Office, and that is equipment that provides the capability for emergency live broadcasts. That would come at an additional cost, but that would provide the means for both the chairman of the board or the sheriff in needs of emergency to address the community, Mohave County citizens. So in essence, it would be less than $100,000, but everything would come back to this board for consideration and approval.
I'll start with Supervisor Johnson this time. Do you have any questions for Ms. Orr?
None.
Supervisor Watson?
Thank you, Ms. Orr.
Supervisor Bishop?
No.
Supervisor Angus?
Okay, I do. I actually have a statement. I had to write it down so I could read it and before I said it. Okay? So the county wants to spend about $100,000 to supply emergency broadcasts that already come via other outlets to a minority of citizens, maybe 39,000, to warn them of emergencies that may involve losing electricity, thereby rendering their TVs inoperable. Sounds like a government plan to me. That's all I got to say.
I have a question for Ms. Orr. How long have we had the WECOM pricing data?
This pricing actually came in when we were reviewing the TV2 option. This is the same pricing that came in at that time.
Why wasn't it included in the backup materials?
It's Supervisor Watson's item. He
Thank
didn't
you.
ask us to include it, so therefore.
Thank you very much, Ms. Orr.
I would say it was my oversight.
Is there any other items or issues you'd like to bring up on this item, Supervisor Watson?
Well, that's all I have to present.
I have a question.
Supervisor Bishop?
I would like to hear from Attorney Ekstrom as far as the legalities.
Attorney Ekstrom.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Bishop, I personally don't recall my comments in July, but if it's attributed to me, I'll accept it and take a look at it. A lot of times the answer you get to a question depends upon the context of the question and what's contained in the question, and I want to see what I said and why. Counties and TV districts are political subdivisions. They only have limited powers set forth by statute, and those necessarily implied therefrom. Whether or not this is an implied power of television districts to provide these kind of services is something I can explore. I know that we spoke with the FCC attorney, Ken Kane, who we rely on as an expert in this area, and his recommendation was that it was permissible, as far as the FCC is concerned, to use the television district for these purposes. Whether or not it's limited by state statute is something I can't off the cuff answer, but I suspect it would be, because it's a public safety issue, one of those necessarily implied powers. And should the board desire, I could provide you something in writing once I get a chance to explore the context of my comments attributed to me in July.
Okay, but you did explore the statute that Steve Robinson left with me, and I believe my assistant asked you to research that particular
Perhaps.
statute.
It just kind of came out of the blue, so I know Mr. Robinson, the sheriff, and most people would agree it's desirable to protect the public to the extent we can within our legal confines.
Thank you.
But, excuse me, Supervisor Moss, but that's not the question. The question is it legal within the statute that guides the TV district, the taxing district? Not if it's for the public, for the benefit of, is it within that statute?
Well, the measure of whether or not the statute applies depends somewhat upon the statute, the legislative history of the statute, the purpose of the statute, and those powers, as I indicated, which can be implied from the statute. And that's the area I would want to explore, whether it's a necessarily implied power with the board.
I understand your confusion, being that we're the only ones in Arizona that has a TV taxing district. It might be difficult to sort of get
Sure,
by
but
comparison,
still in all
because
the
we're
laws-
the only ones.
The law says what it says, so I just want to take a look at it.
All right.
Okay, any other questions for Attorney Ekstrom? Okay. Any other comments on this item?
Chairman Moss, if I could, please.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion for the implementation of the emergency alert broadcast system to deliver important emergency information for Mohave County to be included in the Mohave County Television Improvement District, obviously contingent upon the legal ability to lie within that.
So if I understand the motion, it's to implement this pending a legal opinion. Is that correct?
Contingent upon the legal opinion.
Okay. Why not just continue it until we get the legal opinion, if I can ask?
That's a possibility, too.
Yeah.
Certainly you could do that. Depends whether time is of the essence here.
Because my understanding that your legal opinion, because having written a few, could have multiple alternatives depending on exactly what we're doing. So I'm not sure how it would be a triggering effect by having that legal opinion issued, but go ahead.
There's sort of another issue here, because we have not gotten into the budget yet, and we're going to be talking about monies within the TV district. So I'm kind of thinking this is sort of a way to get around all that. So if we commit to this, then we're not going to be able to have our honest discussion about that TV district, which would be very disappointing to me.
My concern is we had a lot of facts, which apparently the county's been in possession of for a while, presented on this item, which were not included as part of the backup material. And so the public may have been deprived of an opportunity to fully participate on
Of
this
that,
item.
I'll take the responsibility. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this item until our next meeting. But I would like to remind everyone that the fire season and disaster possibility is upon us, and we need to make decisions soon.
I will second your motion, Supervisor Watson, but for discussion, I believe Supervisor Bishop had a question or a comment she'd like to make.
Actually, Supervisor Watson said it for me. I just wanted to remind everybody the fire season is coming on, although I don't think if we approve this, if we could get it installed and working prior to the summer, so that's
Okay.
all I wanted to say.
There's a motion to continue this to the next regular board meeting. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes 5-0. And Attorney Ekstrom, if you could have your legal opinion, I know you have a lot to do, but if you can, it'd be wonderful. Item 55, discussion of possible action. Ray, accept the resignation of Robert Prince, Risk Manager, effective at the end of the workday, June 1st, 2015, and set the parameters necessary to fill the vacancy. Mr. Prince, are you in the room? Can you step down, please? I normally would turn this over to Supervisor Johnson, and I will here in just a moment. But first, we have something we'd like to present to Mr. Prince. I asked him earlier, before the meeting started, since he was deserting Mohave County, if he knew what the punishment was for desertion, and he's about to find out. Supervisor Angus.
Okay.
It's all yours. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, I have in my hand, even though I feel like you are deserting me, a certificate of appreciation. And it says, this certificate is awarded to Robert Prince in recognition of 5 years of dedication and service to Mohave County, and upon your retirement as Director of Risk Management. And it's in this nice little frame. I'd like to hand it to you.
Thank you.
Does anybody, Carol Meyer, you have a camera there?
Thank you very much for all your service, Mr. Prince. Supervisor Johnson, I'm now throwing this over to you.
In your infinite wisdom, you gave it to me to put together the request for the new position. If I can get Mr. Cunningham to come forward. I submitted what I'd written up, and there was a couple changes that Mr. Cunningham and I talked over that he had a problem with that I agree with him on. I think it was only one or two, wasn't there, Mr. Cunningham?
Yes, sir.
And what were those again?
Sir, and they weren't problems, they were just concerns.
Concerns. Okay.
Yes, sir. With the change in the salary scale, that 125,008 put it outside that salary scale. The top of the salary scale is 124,529.60. That's at step 10 of range 29.
Okay, so I'd like to change mine to meet with I had no idea what our pay range scale was, so it's a few $100s over. And the other one was?
Yes, sir. The last statement of taking out or any equivalent combination of education, experience, and training which provides required knowledge, skills, and abilities will be considered in meeting the minimum requirements. We put this in all our job descriptions so we would comply with the EEOC, so we wouldn't discriminate against any classes of people. Or this also gives us the ability, if, let's say, someone has 30 years of experience as a risk director or a risk manager, that we could use that information and we could still consider them qualified. If we take that statement out, our qualifications are a 4-year degree, 4 years as a risk manager, and then our special requirements is they have to be a certified risk manager. If we take this out, if they don't meet any of those qualifications, but they have the experience, we could not consider them for this position.
Okay, just so I'm clear now that it's still in there. I put in 10 years working in the risk manager position. That's still in there whether we drop that last one or not, is one of our requirements.
So, right now, it is 4 years of experience.
That's what went out, but I would like to see 10 years, and it's up
If
to
we
the
put
board
10
if
years,
they agree.
we could,
How old a person are you looking for?
Well, I'm looking for, if we look at the millions of dollars of lawsuits that come in, and I understand you were just being facetious on it, but I want people to understand that it's an important position to the county, and I think we need someone with experience, not somebody with book knowledge, and that was my reason for saying 10 years. And I think we're paying good enough, and even if we had to raise, nobody wants to raise the thing, but I did a comparison of other counties throughout the state, and much like we had done, and found us to be in a pretty good position. But that was my reason for the 10 years, and this last change is more EEOC than anything else, so we don't get sued.
yes, sir, on your 10 years, as we were discussing, when we screen these applicants, currently we have 24 applicants. When we screen them, we can screen in different tiers, different levels, that we can screen those that do not meet the minimum qualifications, those that meet the qualifications, and those that exceed the qualifications. And then you can give bonus points for those people that are above your minimum qualifications. And then when you decide which group or the panel decides what that screening criteria is and who they want to interview, then they can screen those with the most experience. So there are ways with the current language that you could put that in a screening.
I guess that, now you're losing me on the screening process, because I thought that the board would, let's just say they adopt what I wrote up today. That's their screening stuff right there. I mean,
Yes, sir.
what they're meeting for is to say, okay, they're a decent person once they do a background on them and their recommendations.
Yes, sir. On our applicants, we have a few that would meet your 10 years qualifications. And so you could screen all those above, but let's say that you look at those people with the 10 years of experience or more and you don't like any of those. You should be able to still look at those people who meet the minimum qualifications of that 4-year. So tier 1 would be 10 years and above, tier 2 would be 4 to 6 years.
See, that's up to the board, but if our minimum's 10 years, our minimum's 10 years. If they don't fit in, I'd be amazed how they lasted 10 years in their position, but then we go out for another bid again. That would
Yes,
be
sir.
mine. I don't see this as not a job training position for as much as this board sits in executive sessions going over lawsuits.
Thank you much, Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you,
Supervisor,
Mr. Cunningham. Sorry.
Sorry. Do you have anything for Mr. Cunningham, Supervisor Watson?
No, I don't.
Supervisor Bishop?
Nothing.
Supervisor Angus? I don't have any
Out of position for
either.
job training.
Yeah. All right, it's your item. Supervisor Johnson, what would you like to do with this?
If the board wants to accept those requirements with the changes that were made or suggested by Mr. Cunningham, I would make a motion to do that. But the other part of it was I had in, instead of the local screening by our employees here, was because they do work for us, and we could go through the League of Cities and Towns, I put in Association of Counties is willing to put together risk managers and then somebody from the insurance pool to do a quick evaluation at no cost to us of the applicants, and then get us back. They would just review them, say these guys got 10 years, we've done the check of them, they have the appropriate education, and send them to the board saying, it's up to you who you want to choose.
If I'm translating your comments, is it that your motion is to accept your proposal as modified by Mr. Cunningham and with using the City League and Towns and/or ACO to do a evaluation of the applicants?
Right, I just want to make sure that you understood that was in there. I don't want anybody to think.
All right. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There you go. Item 56, discussion and possible action. Ray, moving of the Superior Court 7th Division from the Mohave County Consolidated Court in Lake Havasu to the Superior Court Complex in Kingman. Supervisor Johnson.
Motion for discussion, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I just brought this forward. It came as a surprise to myself that the courts were looking at moving the judge position that's in, the second judge position that's in Lake Havasu City to the Kingman area. This board and previous boards I've been involved in with the county, it was brought to us that, we have a growth in population. It is one of the triggering factors, and we have to have another court, and we're going to put that court in the Lake Havasu area now. Now, after we've gone through a large remodel down there, and we've put a judge down there, it's being moved. Lake Havasu City is the fastest growing city we have in the county. It's the, for population, which drives that. We're now going to have, the second judge will be taken away. We're going to have a commissioner, which is supposedly going to be a 3-day position a week. I believe at Lake Havasu, and while Judge Gertler musters his troops to come up here, it is Judge Gertler's choice on how he wants to do it. I just brought it forth so that the public would be aware that Lake Havasu City will be losing their judge.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Johnson. I do see Kip Anderson and Judge Gertler, our presiding judge, have both stepped down. If they'd like to step forward and make comments on this issue.
May it please the chairman, honorable board members, administration, and council. With Judge Roth's retirement, that put in motion a lot of moving parts. And the decision to place the commissioner in Lake Havasu City and move Division 7 to Kingman is simply the wisest and best use of the judicial resources for the citizens of Mohave County. With the budget cuts, we are losing the position of Judge Pro Tem Gregory. As a result of that, excuse me, those matters had to be reassigned back to judges. One of the assignments that Judge Gregory had was the Title 4D cases. Those are the child support cases that the state of Arizona prosecutes because as a result of a custodial parent not receiving child support from the non-custodial parent, if they meet financial criteria, the state pays for various items of child support. The state is entitled to reimbursement. Those matters have to be assumed by a judge. With Judge Roth having approximately 20 years on the bench, that would not be an issue given the fact that with her current caseload and reassuming the Title IV cases would put her at 1 1/3 of a judge's caseload. It is not a wise thing to bring a brand new judge in and put that judge at 1 1/3 of a caseload. The judicial position in Lake Havasu is at 1 judge caseload. It makes sense. The second reason, and this is a very important reason, the Supreme Court gave me a directive to start to train the next generation of court leadership. Judge Roth not only had the highest amount of domestic relations cases assigned to her, she was the presiding judge of the Domestic Relations Court. The presiding judge of that particular court is very active and the duties are very far-reaching. Virtually every year, the legislature makes modifications to the statutes with respect to domestic relations cases. Sometimes it's terminology, sometimes it's substantive. In addition, the Supreme Court has made changes with respect to guidelines for waiver or fee deferrals of fees and things of this nature. The presiding judge of the Domestic Relations Court gets assigned all of those issues and must work very closely with mediation. I note that our Associate Presiding Judge Rick Williams attended a conference this last week, and he commented that he sat with a number of domestic relations judges from Maricopa County and had no idea of the amount of the administrative duties and how closely those judges have to work with mediation. We really need to have a presiding judge of the Domestic Relations Court located in Kingman because they virtually work daily with mediation. It is not a wise decision to put a brand new judge in as having the largest domestic relations caseload as the presiding judge of the Domestic Relations Court. It makes sense to have a more seasoned and experienced judge like Judge Lambert, who's had 2 years of domestic relations cases, to come to Kingman to assume a larger domestic relations caseload and become the presiding judge of the domestic relations cases. Now, in addition, this is not like Lake Havasu City is losing a judicial position. All of the judges assigned in Lake Havasu City have cases assigned to it other than the Lake Havasu City cases. Now, one of the comments the board and Supervisor Johnson has stressed to me in the past is that if you're going to have a building project, it needs to be so that it will service the county for 10 years. The idea and the principle behind building in Havasu and putting a second judge there is not only was it running about 1.4 of a caseload, too much for one judge, so we bring a second judge in there, but then we have assigned Kingman cases to the judges in Lake Havasu City. Judge Lambert was assigned all of the probate cases out of Kingman, which necessitated parties and attorneys traveling from Kingman to Lake Havasu City. We had suggested to Judge Lambert, conduct those cases in Kingman. He decided that he was going to continue to work in Lake Havasu City. That was his decision. He very well could have been conducting cases and should have probably been conducting cases in Kingman in any event. It is somewhat of a misnomer to refer to a division as a Lake Havasu division or a Kingman division or a Bullhead City division. The divisions are divisions of the Mohave County Superior Court. It is the county position, is not a city position. And the decision, literally was what is going to be the best services, how are we best going to provide for the residents and the citizens of Mohave County? And this made sense. And I can understand and appreciate, Supervisor Johnson. We had a very long conversation. I thank Supervisor Johnson for that. And I appreciate his comment to me that, well, Bullhead City has 2 elected positions. Lake Havasu will only have 1 elected position. Probably the most pertinent example that I can give to you, Supervisor Johnson, is under the Arizona Constitution, judges are mandatorily required to retire at age 70. It is no unknown fact that Judge Comm will be required to retire in a couple of years. If a Lake Havasu city attorney was appointed by the governor to take Division 3, Division 3, in all very, very high probability, would be moved to Lake Havasu City. It would make sense to have a judge that's appointed by the governor from Lake Havasu sit in Lake Havasu City. Having traveled from years from Bullhead to Kingman to handle Kingman cases, having traveled to Lake Havasu City, because I was assigned Lake Havasu City cases for a number of years, I can tell you that a judge is going to be much more productive if they do not have that travel that's involved. It would make every sense to move that division to Lake Havasu City. So, there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of issues with respect to, discerning how case assignments are going to be assigned, where they're going to be assigned. We have the guidance of a study that was completed by the National Center for State Court, which helped us weight the cases. In other words, I can tell you right now that virtually all the judges have a similar amount in the number of cases. However, it's not the number of cases, but it is the weight that is given to the type of cases that is important. As an example, if you have a capital case, a murder case, and a criminal case that's pending, that type of case is going to be assigned a far greater weight than a drug possession criminal case. The DR cases were assigned a weight, civil cases were assigned a weight, criminal cases were assigned a weight. If it is a complex matter, it is given a greater weight. And so we had to look at all of those different scenarios with respect to how to assign these cases. And in all honesty, if I had placed the commissioner back in Kingman, that would mean the 4D cases would have to go somewhere else. And the problem with that literally became that under our grant with the state, only a commissioner can handle the 4D cases. We asked, well, aren't there other counties that have a judge that handle the 4D cases? And they said that's the exception rather than the rule, and the exception is if you are a county with only 1 judge, then that grant will apply to a judge and not a commissioner. So that would have then entailed that we would have had to reassign Kingman DR cases. And that probably would have meant then it would have gone to either Judge Carlisle in Lake Havasu City or Judge Lambert, because their case assignments were lower than the other judges. And if that would have happened, then I would have had one or both of them traveling to Kingman to handle cases, rather than ensuring that we have one judge, that being Judge Carlisle, handling cases in Lake Havasu City every day, and a commissioner handling cases in Lake Havasu and then coming to Kingman for the 4D work. And I can assure you, Supervisor Johnson, that the commissioner is going through a very strenuous vetting process. Applications came out. We do have a local committee that reviewed the applications. They discerned who to interview. The interviews were complete. The names of the suggested applicants were submitted. I believe the comment period expires tomorrow, so the public has been able to comment on the various applicants. I will then take those comments. I will be reviewing those with the presiding judge of the juvenile court, the Honorable Lee Jansen, with Judge Lambert, who will become the domestic relations judge, and Judge Williams, the presiding judge of the civil cases. And we will attempt to come, and probably in all honesty, will come to a consensus as to who should be appointed as the commissioner. But the process doesn't stop there. Because as a full-time commissioner's position, the Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court must also approve whoever is going to be the commissioner. And that means that the Chief Justice, either the Chief Justice personally or through Dave Byers, the Executive Director of the AOC, likewise can conduct a vetting process and interview that candidate or candidates. It is not simply the presiding judge's choice as to who the commissioner is going to be. And so it is a very strenuous process for someone to be appointed to this position. And so Lake Havasu will be getting a very highly qualified commissioner, Judge Pro Tem, to handle matters. I would take any questions.
I'll start with my left. Supervisor Johnson, do you have any questions?
Yes, I mean, if you're talking about somebody who's highly qualified and can be, they're still only there for 3 days a week. I'm saying that this, and the problem I have with the commissioner position is the reason we're filling one is because the person who's held it for 20 years is retiring. This should not be an appointed position that somebody holds for 20 years and retires without ever standing for a vote. In my opinion, I think it should be something where the attorneys fill in 4 years to build up something for their resume. But that's just mine. But all I'm saying, I just wanted to bring it to the board.
Supervisor Johnson, if I could respond to that.
Sure.
Judge Roth has been the exception rather than the rule. Okay, starting with Judge Steve Kahn. He was a commissioner pro tem before he became a constitutionally elected judge. Judge Robert Moon was a commissioner pro tem before becoming a constitutionally elected judge. Judge Richard Weiss was a pro tem before becoming a constitutionally elected judge of the Superior Court. I am not sure about Judge Chavez, if he was a commissioner or if he was directly appointed or not. But the history has actually been that the commissioner's position, Judge Jansen was another commissioner. Judge Carlisle.
Pro tem, though, right?
But Commissioner pro tem.
Pro tem, right. Well, we're just filling in, but I mean, this is a person that's filled.
What I'm saying is, with the exception of Judge Roth, every Commissioner pro tem judge has ultimately become an elected judge. She was the exception to the rule.
But those other ones were just, well, I don't want to go into it too long on that, but what I'm getting at is we built a court, and there was, I mean, I didn't vote for that court, as you probably recall.
I recall.
But it was said that it was going to be in Lake Havasu. It was the understanding of everybody that there was going to be 2 Superior Court judges down there.
There is going to be 2 Superior Court judges down there. There's going to be a pro tem commissioner and a Superior Court judge. And that courtroom, on Thursdays and Fridays, the Consolidated Court wants to use that courtroom. They use it because the Sally Port is connected to that courtroom. And so, for all intents and purposes, the Superior Court is not using that courtroom on those days because when the criminal defendants are transported from the jail to Lake Havasu City, they go to the Sally Port, they're brought into that courtroom. And that is essentially one of those days. Judge Lambert was primarily using Fridays to do his probate matters. And a lot of the probate matters can be done in chambers as compared to a courtroom. And it made sense to do that because, again, the Consolidated Court needed those courtrooms for those 2 days. And again, most of the probate matters are done in chambers rather than the courtroom.
Well, I guess, I'm not going to get into the small parts of it, but the courtroom.
Well, but that is, I think, a very large part. You're saying, well, the judge isn't going to be there for 2 days out of 5. And yet, 2 days out of 5, the Consolidated Court is using that courtroom. Now, that's not to say that Judge Lambert on Thursdays wouldn't use what the Consolidated Court, he would or could. On Fridays, however, primarily were days that probate matters were conducted.
Okay, if we're going to go into the Consolidated Court, when was the last time a review of the Consolidated Court's contract came up where any adjustments were made for additional services that the county was giving them?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
We haven't done it. The only thing we've done is raise how much we pay the Lake Havasu City Court because they gave pay raises. But now you're saying that the Consolidated Court, which I'm considering municipal court, because they're the ones that have these people, because Judge Davis can use the one now. Now we're letting them run the Sally Port and our other courtroom at no additional charges. So the county taxpayers are paying for city use. That's what I'm saying. If you're giving them that, I don't really care to,
Well, that also is Justice of the Peace Jill Davis. She is also handling the
They're
justice.
5 days a week. She should be handling those every day. She get a paycheck.
Well, the point is that Judge Kalawi, I believe, does he have Thursdays and Judge Davis have Fridays? I think that's how it works.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we should be readjusting their salary, but I don't want to argue on that, or the contract with the city if they're getting more of a benefit. But what I'm saying is, it was set up, in my belief, and this is just my belief, that Lake Havasu, we have a ton of people down there, probably over, over 55,000 in the city, over 70,000 people. Now you're saying, and we understand that we're part of Mohave County, but it seems like Bullhead City has 2 elected judges from Bullhead City. We have, 4 Superior Court judges in the Kingman area, but Lake Havasu doesn't even have 1 elected judge from our area, and we only have 1 sitting judge down there. I'm just saying it doesn't appear right to me, and however you divide your credits up is really of no concern to me. I'm just saying, we don't have any representation down there. I just bring it to the board. I didn't want to go in too long in this. I mean,
well, Supervisor Johnson, you did have an attorney from Lake Havasu City that ran for Division 2, and Judge Carlisle won the election.
Yes.
Judge Carlisle is from Kingman.
Mm-hmm.
So the point that I'm making is that if there is an attorney out of Lake Havasu City that is either elected or is appointed by the governor, there's a very, very high probability that that division would be taken to Lake Havasu City. The Supreme Court, if I'm given a directive by the Supreme Court as presiding judge, I have to implement it, okay? The Supreme Court has given me a couple of different directives. Number 1, develop the next generation of court leadership. It makes sense to have a more experienced judge be assigned to the largest DR calendar in the county, in Kingman, and be the presiding judge of the Domestic Relations Court. Judge Lambert fits the bill. The second item that the Supreme Court has made very clear to me is that it desires rotation. The comment that Mr. Byers, the executive director of the administrative offices of the court, had to me was that Judge Steve Kahn is an anomaly. That is almost quote unquote. They have never in the history of the state of Arizona had a judge that almost exclusively did one area of the law. I was all but given a directive to remove Judge Kahn from criminal cases. I argued back. If I assign Judge Kahn domestic relations and civil, he may very well retire, and that would deprive the citizens of Mohave County of the services of an exceptional jurist. It would not make sense. It further makes sense to have a judge who has that history and experience with criminal matters continue with the criminal matters because he helps our case flow. So I offered a solution of which the Supreme Court accepted. And that solution was to assign a second discipline to Judge Kahn. And when I approached Judge Kahn with this solution, I offered to him, what other area of the law would you like to take on in addition to your criminal cases? He chose civil cases. And that's why Judge Kahn has both criminal and civil cases assigned to him. However, when Judge Kahn retires, whoever is elected to Division III will not become a criminal judge for the next 25 or 30 years because of the Supreme Court directive. There shall be rotation. If you look at all of the counties in the state, with the exception of the counties where there is only one judge, there is rotation, and we do have rotation in Mohave County. In Prescott, you have the Verde Valley Complex. Most of the judges live in Prescott. They don't want to necessarily get assigned to Verde Valley, but they understand if it is their turn, they get assigned there. In Maricopa and Pima County, you get 3 years on the DR bench, then you might have 3 years on the civil bench, then you might have 3 years on the criminal bench, then you might have 3 years on the juvenile bench. There's mandatory rotation. What Judge Bartlett worked out, and I think has worked very well, is that the judges in Kingman have rotation because the criminal cases have to be conducted in Kingman because of the jail and the transport issues. The judges in the satellite offices in Havasu and Bullhead City rotate all of the cases amongst themselves with the exception of the criminal cases because the criminal cases, again, are conducted in Kingman. This has worked very well and will continue.
Right, but the only thing that changed was the Commissioner Roth is retiring.
Correct.
Havasu had 2 judges. Commissioner Roth retires, we have 1 assigned judge. That's what I'm saying.
You will have an assigned...
1 assigned Superior Court real judge.
I would beg to differ that, and I would tell you that all of my colleagues on the bench by no means look at Judge Roth as being a lesser as a result of being a pro tem commissioner. We have the utmost respect for her and her abilities, especially from the standpoint of the outstanding work that she has done as the presiding judge of the Domestic Relations Court. She has a full vote at all of the judges' meetings. She, by every means, has filled out whenever called upon and has turned around and filled in for dependency cases. She completed a settlement conference in a civil matter for me because when the parties do not request a jury trial, it's better to have a judge other than the judge presiding over the trial conduct settlement conferences. She was able to get the case settled. I would have absolutely no problems, assigning civil cases to her, dependency cases to her, probate cases to her. However, she is retiring, and that's the fact of the matter.
Right, but she's still not an elected Superior Court judge with all the responsibilities and the ability to handle the cases that they handle. I'm not saying anything about her. I'm just saying she's a commissioner. The person that replaces her is a commissioner. The court that in Lake Havasu has 2 elected Superior Court judges. It will now only have 1. That was one thing I was bringing to the board. I mean, then we can't change the fact that All of a sudden, we have one and a commissioner.
Oh,
3
and again,
days.
the point is that they are county offices. They are not city offices.
And thank you very much for that, Judge Gertler. I'd like to go on to Supervisor Watson. Do you have any questions or comments?
I have no questions, and following this logic, I'd prefer to stay in the dark.
Okay. Supervisor Bishop.
I would just like to say congratulations to Commissioner Julia Roth on her retirement, and I respect the way that you handle your duties, and thank you.
Supervisor Angus.
I echo Supervisor Bishop and Judge Roth, and ditto on, making these decisions and making it work the way you think it should work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to say that I'd like to thank Kip Anderson and the presiding Judge Gertler for all the work you've done in Mohave County. I do believe you have done your best to make the best use of your judicial resources with this assignment in light of the budget cuts. I am reassured, and I think the voters of Lake Havasu and Mohave County should be reassured that this new courtroom that we built is being used full-time. The shifting of judges here and there, there's a judge in that courtroom, whether it's a magistrate, a justice of the peace, or a superior court judge or a commissioner. There's always a judge there. That was money well spent. When it comes to Judge Roth, I would say that Judge Gertler was correct in my experience, and I practiced in front of her for about 17 years. Well, actually, it's got to be 20 years if she's retiring at 20, that she was the exception because she was exceptional. She could handle a caseload that would bring most judges, I believe, to their knees, and she did it with skill and finesse and grace, and she will be missed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Moss. I will certainly pass along to Judge Roth the wonderful compliments. And Supervisor Johnson, I would also comment that on Friday I did receive a call from State Representative Sonny Borelli, highly recommending one candidate that he thought would be absolutely fabulous for Lake Havasu City. And I know that Representative Borelli lives in Lake Havasu City and was ecstatic at the prospect of one candidate being assigned there. So, folks, we have limitations. We do the best we can, and this just made all the logical sense in the world to accomplish the best services for the citizens of Mohave County by making this shift. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please give Judge Roth our best. Thank you.
Going on to item 57. Supervisor Johnson, were you looking for a motion on that, or there was more just an information?
No, it was just more information. At that time, there didn't be anything in the papers yet, and it had been very quiet. That's why I was bringing it forward to the board.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Johnson. Item 57, discussion and possible action. Ray, letter to Governor Doug Ducey regarding the proposed contract with Arizona Department of Economic Security for vending machines. I'll turn this over to you, Supervisor Johnson, if you like. I will say that I've read the letter, and I'm fine with it.
Fine, that's all. If everybody's had a chance to read the letter, I'd make a motion to direct the chairman of the board to sign and send the letter.
Is there, all in favor? Aye. Item 58, discussion and possible action. Ray, Gene Hepler, Office of Management and Budget Director, has submitted to the board his resignation, retirement on effective June 12, 2015. This being a position that direct reports to the Board of Supervisors, the board will or shall discuss replacement and or disposition of that department. Mr. Hepler, are you still here? If you can come down. I won't make a joke at your expense like I did at Mr. Prince's, but Supervisor Watson wants to either hand or hit you with something. We'll find out soon.
Would like to present to you. Gene Hepler, many years of your service in Mohave County.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hepler. This has to do with what are we going to do regarding the replacement and disposition of Mr. Hepler's position. We have, I believe, 11 days until he is retired and gone fishing, and we need to start considering a replacement. There was a bit of a confusion regarding Mr. Prince. Maybe we can avoid that. Do you have any suggestions, County Administrator Hendricks?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, on this particular one, first of all, I'd like to say that I second the sentiment that OMB has saved the county money. They've done what we've requested of them, and they're extremely professional, and Gene's run a very professional organization, and you're going to be greatly missed. And I thank you for all the dedication. A lot of people don't know, but Gene's also a commander in the search and rescue, and he does an outstanding job there. And I understand he's going to continue to pursue that and provide service there for the sheriff's office. So that I was glad to hear. As for
If I could interrupt you, County Administrator Hendricks, and they may give you a moment to collect your thoughts for the second time today, probably because we're going nonstop. I forgot to call people to the call to the public, and I would like to take care of that. But I'm going to call upon you after they're done, so you can take a few minutes to collect your thoughts.
This isn't a public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Call to the public? I'm sorry, request to speak form? I have two of them.
It's only on, if they're, I mean, it's up to you if you want to do it, but these aren't.
Yes. Is Carol Meyer available? Did we lose Miss Meyer? No, we have not. All right. Hello, Carol.
Good morning.
I'm going to give you a gold star for your fortitude in bearing through with us all in all this.
I know, my back hurts. Chairman and supervisors, if it is the intent to do away with this department, then I have a major project where we are trying to accurately reflect all of our fees in our reporting structure. OMB every year does an analysis on our fees. This is very important because we cannot make a profit. The department can only charge what it costs to do business. We have new fees set by statute that take effect July 3rd. That OMB is helping us structure our reporting to ensure accuracy. We work very close with the department. If they are not here, where do I go?
Thank you very much, Ms. Meyer. We also have signed up to speak a dual form, Leslie Brooksvort and Judy Toledo. Are they present? Since you filled out the form as a joint effort, I assume you two of you are going to speak in stereo, so.
Rehearsed. Yeah. Thank you for allowing us to speak, and I want to start with, I'm not used to public speaking, so this is very difficult for me, but I'm Leslie Brooksford. I live at 3359 Rainbow Mine Road in Kingman.
I'm Judy Toledo. I live at 3359 Roma Court in Kingman.
We do not believe that you, as a board, know what we, as the Office of Management and Budget, have contributed to the county. We believe that you should know what we do because we report to you. Our final reports are not always forwarded to the board. All you see is a list of projects that probably do not have much meaning to you. It also appears that you believe that without Gene, there is no Office of Management and Budget. This isn't true. We do not intend to minimize Gene's contribution, but instead to provide to you a few examples of what we contribute. Our office serves as an internal audit function. Gene is not an accountant, and he is not an auditor. He does review our reports, but that's the extent of his contributions on many of the projects that require an accounting or auditing background. Gene does not have the skills to plan or conduct an audit. We completed a review of the benefits department, and we were able to provide some very positive contributions with that project. This isn't something that most of you are aware of because you haven't seen the report. We also completed an audit on promotions and raises that only one board member has reviewed. We haven't provided the reports to you because we're waiting for direction from the board member that has seen the report. We are assisting a department with a bank reconciliation that has become so complicated that the department didn't have an employee that was capable of completing the reconciliation. They finally do have an employee that is capable of learning this process, and we are hoping we will be able to turn that process over soon, but until then, they and finance depend on our department to prepare the reconciliation. Jean does not have the skills to reconcile this account or assist the department in taking over that function. We have another department that needs assistance with updating a posting model that we created for them. That posting model is in Excel, and they are using it to post the treasurer's receipts and create a monthly revenue report. Again, Jean does not have the skills to complete this task. All financial reviews are completed by us. Jean isn't an accountant and doesn't have the skills to complete these projects. Any request that requires us to extract information from Eunice, the county's financial system, must be completed by us. Jean doesn't have the skills to complete that function. We calculate the cost of providing most of the county services. We assist departments by flow charting and improving processes. We prepare the FEMA and state emergency reimbursements for the county. We prepare several other ad hoc reports and analysis that are not in our job descriptions, and we do so because we add value to this county, and there is no other staff that has the time to drop their work and perform these functions. We also want you to know that some of the skills needed to complete these tasks are available in finance, but that department does not have the time or personnel to work on these projects. They are busy paying our bills, processing payroll, preparing financial and budget reports, updating the Munis database, and a lot of other tasks that I don't have time to mention here. We are a valued internal function of Mohave County. Gene is the director of the Office of Management and Budget. He is not the Office of Management and Budget. There are a lot of projects that could not have been completed without the skills that Judy and I have to offer. In closing, Gene called Judy on Friday and suggested that we call departments that we work with and ask them to come to the meeting and tell you what we do for them. We decided that we would rather tell you ourselves. We do encourage you to speak to the county departments to see how they feel about our services before you decide that we have no value. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. County Administrator Hendricks.
And thanks for allowing me the time to collect my thoughts.
It was unintentional, I assure you.
I am laser clear on where I want to go with this, and I have been ever since Gene resigned, but I'm not used to discussing personal matters in front of the public. However, I have discussed this with Cora Lloyd, and she's an extremely talented individual. I do agree with Judy and Leslie that they provided a tremendous value, and they're very talented individuals. And what Coral and I have discussed is whether she would be willing to have me recommend to the board to accept the responsibilities of O&B in the realm of the duties that they do. I know that Coral wouldn't be able to provide all the functions that O&B provides, but at least from a county administrator recommendation, I would recommend that Gene's most valuable staff be assigned to finance under Coral Lloyd as accountants, and that the finance department, with the help of Judy and Leslie, go through the duties that they're currently performing and decide what they can take on and will be able to take on and provide the service for Mohave County. I would then recommend to the board, because we are in such dire straits in our budget process, that at this time we don't fill the manager position for O&B. I believe Gene is a unique individual and he fulfilled a unique niche, but I do believe that his staff will be able to function under finance.
Okay, and if I can sum that up, County Administrator Hendricks, is that your recommendation is that we accept the resignation of Mr. Hepler, which I think is something we have to do, that effective upon this next budget year, or effective June 12th, I'm not clear on that, that effective June 12th, that the staff of O&B would then be assigned to finance, where they would largely fulfill the same functions they did before, and that you would serve as the O&B director, or we simply not fill that position?
that the duties would be assigned, as many of the duties as possible would be assigned to finance, and we would not fill the OMB director position at this time. And we would count that as savings at this for the next fiscal year.
Okay. I hope I've clarified what I thought I heard was being said. And I'll now turn it over to the other board members, starting to my right with Supervisor Angus.
This is not something we're going to vote on.
Or we have to accept the resignation of Mr. Hepler. We're definitely going to vote on that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming all of this is going to be spoken about when we get into the budget, about what's necessarily in finance and things like that.
I just received Mr. Hepler's resignation and was asked to give a recommendation that I wasn't prepared to give today.
Right.
I did try to plan for it as best as I possibly could in discussing the matter with Coral, with Ms. Lloyd, and to try to, as you would expect a county administrator to do, try to think of contingencies and come up with the best on-the-spot recommendation that I possibly could to the Board of Supervisors. The process, obviously, I believe the staff of OMB need to be assigned and be provided direction from some area, and I'm giving you the best recommendation that I possibly can. And they need to be provide that direction upon Jean leaving. And so my recommendation would be to try as best we can to pick up the pieces and have them assigned to finance and take on as many of the OMB duties as we possibly can in that manner with that structure.
But that's your recommendation, which we will talk about during the budget process. But right now, you're saying that we're going to vote on accepting the resignation and that you're going to be the interim OMB director?
I can do whatever the board directs me.
Oh, no, I guess I'm trying to understand. It's very good.
My translation was that effective June 12th, which is 4 days before our next board meeting,
Right.
that between the 12th and whenever we decide to do something different, Jean's staff would be assigned to finance. There would be no OMB director. They would continue to do the OMB function within the finance department.
okay.
And we would not fill the OMB position in the near term. That's my understanding.
That's
of what was
correct.
being proposed.
Okay.
All right, Supervisor Bishop?
I think it's a good idea. I think reassigning the two individuals to finance makes perfect sense. They could continue to do what they're qualified to do. And in the interim, we can, if we need a OMB director, when we get financially okay with the budget, we can bring that back and look at it again. So I think it's a good temporary fix.
Supervisor Watson?
I agree as a temporary fix. We may want to consider keeping Gene's position on the books because he reports, or that department currently reports to the board. And by putting this on the finance, those people are under the directive of the finance director, which is under the county administrator. So you may want to have some flexibility before you put a final thought on this.
Right. Supervisor Johnson?
I would have to agree. It seems like we're going through a budget process, and all of a sudden today, the finance director who's asked us to took $3.8 million out of the employee's budget gets 2 new employees. So that was kind of amazing to me, but I believe would go along with Supervisor Watson that this is under us, that these 2 employees, if you put them into finance, they're gone. They're into finance. Director Lloyd's going to use them whatever way she sees fit. We'll never get them back. I think they both work. You know, they made it abundantly clear that they didn't need Gene very much to actually fulfill their duties. And I believe that that they would let us know if we give them a job to do that they couldn't do, that they needed help on. I think that today we shouldn't be assigning them, or the 12th, we shouldn't be assigning them off. We should make a decision whether we're going to keep it or not keep it. If we're not going to keep it, then that's fine. I'm glad they have places to go, but OMB's over with if we give it back to finance, I believe.
Chairman Moss?
Yes.
According from the amount of work still to be done, there seems that there's enough ongoing work to at least get us through the budget, and then we'll make better decisions, I think, if we have that flexibility.
So what you're proposing is to, I mean, I'm trying to translate again, is that we keep OMB with Judy and Leslie working in OMB, and they would be reporting to whom while they're finishing up the projects they have working on right now?
To us.
All right.
I mean, to the board, however they've been reporting, however Gene Hepler's been reporting. And then again, through the budget process, we will decide all these issues.
So, but you would agree then that we don't fill the OMB director position, at least in the near term?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the two, this is what I see the two paths in the road are, is one, we assign, and by the way, I want to say that in my experience, I know I've been very quiet, and I've tried to only work through Gene, and I've tried not to work too hard through Gene, because I know you folks had a lot of projects going on, and I was only concerned about one project. But from my observation, I think Ms. Bruxfort and Ms. Toledo were outstanding members of your department who did excellent work. So I want to get that clear. As I understand it, everyone agrees that we have to accept Mr. Hepler's resignation. We have to make a plan that's effective on June 12th, which is his resignation date. Everyone agrees that there will be no filling of the OMB director position in the near term. Instead, the controversy or the two options is, one, do we assign the OMB staff to finance to continue OMB functions, or do we leave them as a self-contained entity until we finish this budget process? Am I understanding that correctly? Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's the two choices.
Mr. Chairman, then I would make a motion to accept the resignation of Mr. Hepler and continue on with OMB, not filling the vacancy until after budget.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. There you go. I am greatly pleased to clarify for OMB's sake, for Leslie and Judy Toledo's, that means you still report directly to the board. You're still OMB. You're just running the department together, at least temporarily. Now, I'm greatly pleased to see that we have concluded this lengthy agenda. And can I have a motion to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, what do we do about the workshop? Do we just keep powering on through, or do we break for lunch? We break for lunch. We have one vote for break for lunch.
I'd break for lunch.
Can we make it a short break for lunch and say everyone back by 2?
I can probably be back in 10 minutes.
Well, not everyone is
I'll
as
probably do
speedy
it by
as you.
phone then, Mr. Chairman, if we're going to break.
Oh, that's fine. Can I have a motion that we reconvene the workshop at 2 p.m., or can I do that on authority as my chairmanship, my gavelhood?
I believe that's your authority.
We're adjourned, and we're coming back to the workshop at 2 p.m., folks.
You're going to have to vote.